darkness. For one brief moment, her eyes touched the shadows where I hid, but then flickered quickly away. "Charlie?" she asked in a low voice, still peering into the trees surrounding the small yard. The door of his car slammed shut, and she looked to the sound. She got to her feet quickly and gathered her things, casting one more look back toward the woods. I moved into a tree closer to the back window near the small kitchen and listened to their evening. It was interesting to compare Charlie's words to his muffled thoughts. His love and concern for his only child were nearly overwhelming, and yet his words were always terse and casual. Most of the time, they sat in companionable silence. I heard her discuss her plans to go shopping the following evening in Port Angeles with Jessica and Angela, and I refined my own plans as I listened. Jasper had not warned Peter and Charlotte to stay clear of Port Angeles. Though I knew they had fed recently and had no intention of hunting anywhere in the vicinity of our home, I would watch her, just in case. After all, there were always others of my kind out there. And, of course, all those human dangers that I had never much considered before now. I heard her worry aloud about leaving her father to prepare dinner alone, and smiled at this proof to my theory. Yes, she was the caretaker here too. And then I left, knowing I would return while she was asleep, ignoring every ethical and moral argument against my behavior. But I certainly would not trespass on her privacy the way the peeping Tom would have. I was here for her protection, not to leer at her in the way Mike Newton no doubt would, were he agile enough to move through the treetops. I would not treat her so crassly.
What's up, Biggie?
My house was empty when I returned, which was fine by me. I didn't miss the confused or disparaging thoughts questioning my sanity. Emmett had left a note stuck to the newel post. "Football at Rainier Field. Come on, please." I found a pen and scrawled the word sorry beneath his plea. The teams were even without me, in any case. I went for the shortest of hunting trips, contenting myself with the smaller, gentler creatures that did not taste as good as the other predators, and then changed into fresh clothes before I ran back to Forks. Bella did not sleep as well tonight. She thrashed in her blankets, her face sometimes worried, sometimes forlorn. I wondered what nightmare haunted her, and then realized that perhaps I didn't really want to know. When she spoke, she mostly muttered derogatory things about Forks in a glum voice. Only once, when she sighed out the words, "Come back," and her hand twitched open, a wordless plea, did I have a chance to hope she might be dreaming of me. The next day of school, the last day the sun would hold me prisoner, was much the same as the day before. Bella seemed even gloomier than yesterday, and I wondered if she would bow out of her plans. She didn't seem in the mood. But being Bella, she would probably put her friend's enjoyment above her own. She wore a deep blue blouse today, and the color set her skin off perfectly, making it look like fresh cream. School ended, and Jessica agreed to pick the other girls up. I went home to get my car. When I found that Peter and Charlotte were there, I decided I could afford to give the girls an hour or so as a head start. It would have been a struggle to follow them, driving at the speed limit. Hideous thought. Everyone was gathered in the bright, great room. Peter and Charlotte both noticed my abstraction as I belatedly welcomed them, apologizing half-heartedly for my absence, kissing her cheek and shaking his hand. I was unable to concentrate enough to join the group conversation. As soon as I could politely extricate myself, I drifted to the piano and began playing quietly. What a strange creature, the Alice-sized white-blonde Charlotte was thinking. And he was so normal and pleasant the last time we met. Peter's thoughts were in sync with hers, as was usually the case. It must be the animals. The lack of human blood drives them mad eventually, he was concluding. His hair was just as fair as hers, and almost as long. They were very similar, except for size, as he was nearly as tall as Emmett. A well-matched pair, I'd always thought. Why even bother coming home? Rosalie sneered. Ah, Edward, I hate to see him suffering so. Esme's joy was becoming corrupted by her concern. She should be concerned. This love story she envisioned for me was careening toward tragedy more perceptibly every moment. Have fun in Port Angeles tonight, Alice thought cheerfully. Let me know when I'm allowed to talk to Bella. You're pathetic. I can't believe you missed the game last night just to watch somebody sleep, Emmett grumbled. Everyone but Esme stopped thinking about me after a moment, and I kept my playing subdued so that I would not attract notice. I did not pay attention to them for a long while, just letting the music distract me from my unease. It was never not distressing to have the girl out of sight. I only returned my focus to their conversation when the goodbyes grew more final. If you see Maria again, Jasper was saying a little warily, tell her I wish her well. Maria was the vampire who had created both Jasper and Peter. Jasper in the latter half of the 19th century, Peter more recently in the 1940s. She'd looked Jasper up once when we were in Calgary. It had been an eventful visit. We'd had to move immediately. Jasper had politely asked her to keep her distance in the future. I don't imagine we'll cross paths soon, Peter said with a laugh. Maria was undeniably dangerous, and there was not much love lost between her and Peter. Peter had, after all, been instrumental in Jasper's defection. Jasper had always been Maria's favorite. She considered it a minor detail that she had once planned to kill him. But, should it happen, I certainly will. They were shaking hands then, preparing to depart. I let the song I was playing trail off to an unsatisfying end and got hastily to my feet. Charlotte, Peter, I said, nodding. It was nice to see you again, Edward, Charlotte said doubtfully. Peter just nodded in return. Madman, Emmett threw after me. Idiot, Rosalie thought at the same time. Poor boy, Esme. And Alice, in a chiding tone. They're going straight east to Seattle. Nowhere near Port Angeles. She showed me the proof in her visions. I pretended I hadn't heard that. My excuses were already flimsy enough. Once in my car, I felt more relaxed. The robust purr of the engine Rosalie had boosted for me last year when she was in a better mood was soothing. It was a relief to be in motion, to know that I was getting closer to Bella with every mile that flew away under my tires. Chapter 9, Port Angeles. It was too bright for me to drive into town when I got to Port Angeles. The sun was still high overhead, and though my windows were tinted dark enough to provide some protection, there was no reason to take unnecessary risks. More unnecessary risks, I should say. How condescendingly I'd once judged Emmett for his thoughtless ways and Jasper for his lack of discipline. And now, I was consciously flouting all the rules with a wild abandon that made their lapses look like nothing at all. I used to be the responsible one. I sighed. I was certain I would be able to find Jessica's thoughts from a distance. Hers were louder than Angela's. But once I found the first, I'd be able to hear the second. Then, when the shadows lengthened, I could get closer. Just outside the town, I pulled off the road onto an overgrown driveway that appeared to be infrequently used. I knew the general direction to search it. There were not many places to shop for dresses in Port Angeles.
Oh, damn it.
It wasn't long before I found Jessica, spinning in front of a three-way mirror, and I could see Bella in her peripheral vision, appraising the long black dress she wore. Bella still looks pissed. Angela was right. Tyler was full of it. I can't believe she's so upset about it, though. At least she knows she has a backup date for the prom. What if Mike doesn't have fun at the dance and doesn't ask me out again? What if he asks Bella to the prom? Does he think she's prettier than me? Does she think she's prettier than me? I think I like the blue one better. It really brings out your eyes. Jessica smiled at Bella with false warmth while eyeing her suspiciously. Does she really think that? Or does she want me to look like a cow on Saturday? I was already tired of listening to Jessica. I searched close by for Angela. But Angela was in the process of changing dresses, and I skipped quickly out of her head to give her some privacy. Well, there wasn't much trouble Bella could get into in a department store. I'd let them shop and then catch up with them when they were done. It wouldn't be long until dark. The clouds were beginning to return, drifting in from the west. I could only catch glimpses of them through the thick trees, but I could see how they would hurry the sunset. I welcomed them.
Where the fuck did he come
more
from?
than I had ever yearned for their shadows before. Tomorrow I could sit
Oh,
beside her
God.
in school again, monopolize her attention at lunch. I could ask her all the questions I'd been saving up. So she was furious about Tyler's presumption. I'd seen that in his head, that he'd meant it literally when he'd spoken of the prom, that he was staking a claim. I pictured her expression from that other afternoon, the outraged disbelief, and laughed. I wondered what she would say to him about this. Or perhaps she was more likely to pretend ignorant, to bluff and hope it would put him off. It would be interesting to see. The time went slowly while I waited for the shadows to lengthen. I checked in periodically with Jessica. Her mental voice was the easiest to find, but I didn't like to linger very long. I saw the place they were planning to eat. It would be dark by dinner time. Maybe I would coincidentally choose the same restaurant. I touched the phone in my pocket, thinking of inviting Alice out to join me. She would love that, but she would also want to talk to Bella. I wasn't sure if I was ready to have Bella more involved with my world. Wasn't one vampire trouble enough? I checked in routinely with Jessica again. She was thinking about her jewelry, asking Angela's opinion. Maybe I should take the necklace back. I've got one at home that would probably work, and I spent more than I was supposed to. My mom is gonna freak out. What was I thinking? I don't mind going back to the store. Do you think Bella will be looking for us, though? What was this? Bella wasn't with them? I stared through Jessica's eyes first, then switched to Angela's. They were on the sidewalk in front of a line of shops, just turning back the other way. Bella was nowhere in sight. Oh, who cares about Bella? Jess thought impatiently before answering Angela's question. She's fine. We'll get to the restaurant in plenty of time, even if we go back. Anyway, I think she wanted to be alone. I got a brief glimpse of the bookshop Jessica thought Bella had gone to. Let's hurry then, Angela said. I hope Bella doesn't think we ditched her. She was so nice to me in the car before, but she seemed kind of blue all day. I wonder if it's because of Edward Cullen. I'll bet that's why she was asking about his family. I should have been paying better attention. What had I missed here? Bella was off wandering by herself, and she'd been asking about me? Angela was paying attention to Jessica now. Jessica was babbling about that imbecile Mike, and I could get nothing more from her. I judged the shadows. The sun would be behind the clouds soon enough. If I stayed on the west side of the road, where the buildings would shade the street from the fading light. I started to feel anxious as I drove through the sparse traffic into the center of town. This wasn't something I had considered, Bella setting off on her own, and I had no idea how to find her. I should have considered it. I knew Port Angeles well. I drove straight to the bookstore in Jessica's head, hoping my search would be short, but doubting it would be so easy. When did Bella ever make it easy? Sure enough, the little shop was empty, except for the anachronistically dressed woman behind the counter. This didn't look like the kind of place Bella would find interesting. Too new age for a practical person. I wondered if she'd even bothered to go inside. There was a patch of shade I could park in. It made a dark pathway right up to the awning of the shop. I really shouldn't. Wandering around in the sunlit hours was not safe. What if a passing car threw the sun's reflection on me at just the wrong moment? But I didn't know how else to look for Bella. I parked and got out, keeping to the side of deepest shadow. I strode quickly into the store, noting the faint trace of Bella's scent in the air. She had been here, on the sidewalk, but there was no hint of her fragrance inside the shop. Welcome. Can I help? The saleswoman began to say, but I was already out the door. I followed Bella's scent as far as the shade would allow, stopping when I got to the edge of the sunlight. How powerless it made me feel, fenced in by the line between dark and light that stretched across the sidewalk in front of me. I could only guess that she'd continued across the street, heading south. There wasn't really much in that direction. Was she lost? Well, that possibility didn't sound entirely out of character. I got back in the car and drove slowly through the streets, looking for her. I stepped out into a few other patches of shadow, but only caught her scent once more, and the direction of it confused me. Where was she trying to go? I drove back and forth between the bookstore and the restaurant a few times, hoping to see her on her way. Jessica and Angela were already there, trying to decide whether to order or to wait for Bella. Jessica was pushing for ordering immediately. I began flitting through the minds of strangers, looking through their eyes. Surely someone must have seen her somewhere. I got more and more anxious the longer she remained missing. I'd not considered before how difficult she might prove to find once, like now, she was out of my sight and off her normal paths. The clouds were massing on the horizon, and in a few more minutes, I would be free to track her on foot. It wouldn't take me long then. It was only the sun that made me so helpless now. Just a few more minutes, and then the advantage would be mine again, and it would be the human world that was powerless. Another mind and another. So many trivial thoughts. Think the baby has another ear infection. Was it 640 or 604? Late again. I ought to tell him. Aha, here she comes. There, at last, was her face. Finally, someone had noticed her. The relief lasted for only a fraction of a second, and then I read more fully the thoughts of the man who was gloating over her face where she hesitated in the shadows. His mind was a stranger to me, and yet not totally unfamiliar. I had once hunted exactly such minds. No! I roared, and a volley of snarls erupted from my throat. My foot shoved the gas pedal to the floor, but where was I going? I knew the general direction his thoughts came from, but the location was not specific enough. Something. There had to be something. A street sign, a storefront, something in his sightline that would give him away. But Bella was deep in shadow, and his eyes were focused only on her frightened expression, enjoying the fear there. Her face was blurred in his mind by the memory of other faces. Bella was not his first victim. The sound of my growls shook the frame of the car, but it did not distract me. There were no windows in the wall behind her. Somewhere industrial, away from the more populated shopping district. My car squealed around a corner, swerving past another vehicle, heading in what I hoped was the right direction. By the time the other driver honked, the sound was far behind me. Look at her shaking. The man chuckled in anticipation. The fear was the draw for him, the part he enjoyed. Stay away from me. Her voice was low and steady, not a scream. Don't be like that, sugar. He watched her flinch at a rowdy laugh that came from another direction. He was irritated with the noise. Shut up, Jeff, he thought. But he enjoyed the way she cringed. It excited him. He began to imagine her pleas, the way she would beg. I hadn't realized that there were others with him until I'd heard the loud laughter. I scanned out from him, desperate for something that I could use. He was taking the first step in her direction, flexing his hands. The minds around him were not the cesspool that his was. They were all slightly intoxicated, not one of them realizing how far the man they called Lanny planned to go with this. They were blindly following Lanny's lead. He'd promised them a little fun. One of them glanced down the street, nervous. He didn't want to get caught harassing the girl, and gave me what I needed. I recognized the cross street he stared toward. I flew under a red light, sliding through a space just wide enough between two cars in the moving traffic. Horns blared behind me. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. Lanny moved slowly toward the girl, drawing out the suspense, the moment of terror that aroused him. He waited for her scream, preparing to savor it. But Bella locked her jaw and braced herself. He was surprised. He'd expected her to try to run. Surprised and slightly disappointed. He liked to chase his prey down, feel the adrenaline of the hunt. Brave, this one. Maybe better, I guess. More fight in her. I was a block away. The fiend could hear the roar of my engine now, but he paid it no attention, too intent on his victim. I would see how he enjoyed the hunt when he was the prey. I would see what he thought of my style of hunting. In another compartment of my head, I was already sorting through the horrors I'd borne witness to in my vigilante days, searching for the most painful of them. I had never tortured my prey, no matter how much they had deserved it. But this man was different. He would suffer for this. He would writhe in agony. The others would merely die for their part. But this creature, named Lanny, would beg for death long before I would give him that gift. He was in the road, crossing toward her. I spun sharply around the corner, my headlights washing across the scene and freezing the rest of them in place. I could have run down the leader who leaped out of the way, but that was too easy a death for him. I let the car spin out, swinging all the way around so that I was facing back the way I'd come and the passenger door was closest to Bella. I threw that open and she was already running toward the car. "Get in," I snarled. "What the hell?" "Knew this was a bad idea. She's not alone." "Should I run? Think I'm gonna throw up." Bella jumped through the open door without hesitating, pulling it shut behind her. And then she looked up at me with the most trusting expression I had ever seen on a human face, and all my violent plans crumbled. It took much, much less than a second for me to see that I could not leave her in the car in order to deal with the 4 men in the street. What would I tell her? Not to watch? Ha! When did she ever do what I asked? Would I drag them away out of her sight and leave her alone here? It was a long shot that another psychopath would be prowling the streets of Port Angeles tonight, but it was a long shot that there was even a first. Here was proof positive that I was not insane. Like a magnet, she drew all things dangerous toward herself. If I were not close enough to provide it, some other evil would take my place. It would feel like part of the same motion to her as I accelerated, taking her away from her pursuers so quickly that they gaped after my car with uncomprehending expressions. She would not recognize my instant of hesitation. I couldn't even hit him with my car. It would frighten me. I wanted his death so savagely that the need for it rang in my ears, clouded my sight, and was a bitter flavor on my tongue, stronger than the burn of my thirst. My muscles were coiled with the urgency, the craving, the necessity of it. I had to kill him. I would peel him slowly apart, piece by piece, skin from muscle, muscle from bone. Except that the girl, the only girl in the world, was clinging to her seat with both hands, staring at me, her eyes strangely calm and unquestioning. Vengeance would have to wait. "Put on your seatbelt," I ordered. My voice was rough with the hate and bloodlust. Not the usual bloodlust. I had long been committed to abstaining from human blood, and I would not let this creature change that. This would be retribution only. She locked the seatbelt into place, jumping slightly at the sound it made. That little noise made her jump, yet she did not flinch as I tore through the town, ignoring all traffic guides. I could feel her eyes on me. She seemed oddly relaxed. It didn't make sense, not with what had just happened to her. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice rough with stress and fear. She wanted to know if I was okay. Was I okay? No, I realized, and my tone seethed with rage. I took her to the same unused drive where I'd spent the afternoon engaged in the poorest surveillance ever kept. It was black now under the trees. I was so furious that my body froze in place there, utterly motionless. My ice-locked hands ached to crush her attacker, to grind him into pieces so mangled that his body could never be identified. But that would entail leaving her here alone, unprotected in the dark night. My mind was replaying scenes from my hunting days, images I wished I could forget. Especially now, with the urge to kill so much stronger than any hunting compulsion I'd ever felt before. This man, this abomination, was not the worst of his kind. Though it was difficult to sort the depths of evil into a merit-based order, still, I remembered the very worst. There had never been any question that he deserved that title. Most of the men I'd hunted back in my days of acting as judge, jury, and executioner had felt some level of remorse, or at least fear of being caught. Many of them turned to alcohol or drugs to silence their worries. Others compartmentalized, created fractures in their personalities, and lived as two men, one for the light and one for the dark. But for the worst, the vilest aberration I'd ever encountered, remorse was not an issue. I'd never found anyone who embraced his own evil so thoroughly, who enjoyed it. He was utterly delighted by the world he created, a world of helpless victims and their tortured screams. Pain was the object of all his pursuits, and he'd gotten very good at creating it, at prolonging it. I was committed to my rules, to my justification for all the blood I claimed. But in this instance, I wavered. To let this particular man die swiftly seemed far too easy an escape for him. It was the closest I ever came to crossing that line. Still, I killed him as quickly and efficiently as I killed all the rest. It might have gone differently if two of his victims had not been in that basement of horrors when I discovered him. Two young women, already badly injured. Though I carried them both to a hospital at the greatest speed I was capable of, only one survived. I hadn't had time to drink his blood. That didn't matter. There were so many others who deserved to die. Like this Lanny. He was an atrocity too, but surely not worse than the one I'd remembered. Why did it feel right then, imperative, that he suffer so much more? But first, Bella, I asked through my teeth. Yes, she responded huskily. She cleared her throat. Are you all right? That was really the most important thing, the first priority. Retribution was secondary. I knew that, but my body was so filled with rage that it was hard to think. Yes, her voice was still thick with fear, no doubt. And so I could not leave her. Even if she wasn't at constant risk for some infuriating reason, some joke the universe was playing on me, even if I could be sure that she would be perfectly safe in my absence, I could not leave her alone in the dark. She must be so frightened. Yet, I was in no condition to comfort her, even if I knew exactly how that was to be accomplished, which I did not. Surely she could feel the brutality radiating out of me. Surely that much was obvious. I would frighten her even more if I could not calm the lust for slaughter boiling inside me. I needed to think about something else. Distract me, please, I pleaded. I'm sorry, what? I barely had enough control to try to explain what I needed. I couldn't think of how to express it. I picked the closest word I could think of. Prattle about something unimportant until I calmed down. It was a poor word choice, I realized as soon as it was out, but I couldn't find much room to care. Only the fact that she needed me held me inside the car. I could hear the man's thoughts, his disappointment and anger. I knew where to find him. I closed my eyes, wishing that I couldn't see anyway. She hesitated, trying to make sense of my request, I imagined, or perhaps offended. Then she continued. I'm going to run over Tyler Crowley tomorrow before school? She said this like it was a question. Yes, this was what I needed. Of course Bella would come up with something unexpected. As it had been before, the threat of violence coming through her lips was jarring, comical. If I had not been burning with the urge to kill, I would have laughed. Why? I barked out to force her to speak again. He's telling everyone that he's taking me to prom, she said, her voice filled with outrage. Either he's insane, or he's still trying to make up for almost killing me well, you remember it, she inserted dryly. And he thinks prom is somehow the correct way to do this. So I figure if I endanger his life, then we're even, and he can't keep trying to make amends. I don't need enemies, and maybe Lauren would back off if he left me alone. I might have to total his Sentra, though. She went on, thoughtful now. If he doesn't have a ride, he can't take anyone to prom. It was encouraging to see that she sometimes got things wrong. Tyler's persistence had nothing to do with the accident. She didn't seem to understand the appeal she held for the human boys at the high school. Did she not see the appeal she had for me, either? It was working. The baffling processes of her mind were always engrossing. I was beginning to gain control of myself, to see something beyond vengeance and slaughter. I heard about that, I told her. She had stopped talking and I needed her to continue. You did? She asked incredulously, and then her voice was angrier than before. If he's paralyzed from the neck down, he can't go to the prom either. I wish there was some way I could ask her to continue with the threats of death and bodily harm without sounding insane. She couldn't have picked a better way to calm me, and her words, just sarcasm in her case, hyperbole, were a reminder I dearly needed in this moment. I sighed and opened my eyes.
Sorry, I'm distracted.
Better? She asked timidly.
I'm trying to, I whipped out my Switch for the first time in a long time.
But not
and I'm
better.
trying to, get it all
Because
set up
I
and
just realized that I could not kill the
It's just,
fiend named Lanny.
such a pain in the ass.
The only
I had to,
thing in this
reset
moment that I
passwords
wanted
and,
more than
all
to
this.
commit a highly justifiable murder was this girl. And though I couldn't have her,
won't load any games
just the
until I
dream
get the
of
old
having
Switch
her made
out
it
and do,
impossible for
update
me
that
to go
system.
on a killing
It's just
spree tonight.
so much
Bella
more work than I
deserved
intended.
better than a killer. I'd spent more than 7 decades trying to be something, anything
Squirrel
other
probably
than a
would have
killer.
done it.
Those years of effort could never make me worthy of
Where's
the girl
squirrel
sitting
emoji?
beside me.
We have those.
And yet, I felt that if I returned to that life for even one night,
Nope.
I would surely put her out of my reach forever. Even if I didn't drink their blood, even if I didn't have that evidence blazing red in my eyes, wouldn't she sense the difference? I was trying to be good enough for her. It was an impossible goal, but I couldn't bear the thought of giving up. "What's wrong?" she whispered.
Yep.
Her
See what
scent
happens.
filled my
See your
nose, and I
response.
was reminded why I
That would
could
be
not
funny.
deserve her. After all this, even as much as I loved her, she still made my mouth water.
How's your day going? Doing anything fun
I
today?
would give her as much honesty as I could. I owed her that. Sometimes I have a problem with my temper, Bella. I stared out into the black night, wishing
Billy.
both that she would hear the horror inherent in my words and that she would not. Mostly
Billy,
that she would not. Run, Bella, run. Stay, Bella, stay. But it wouldn't be helpful for me to turn around and hunt down those. Just thinking about it almost pulled me from the car. I took a deep breath, letting her scent scorch down my throat. At least, that's what I'm trying to convince myself. Oh, she said nothing else. How much had she understood? I glanced at her furtively, but her face was unreadable, blank with shock in her eyes. Well, she wasn't screaming in horror. Not yet. Jessica and Angela will be worried, she said quietly. Her voice was very calm, and I was not sure how that could be. Was she in shock?
Oh no!
Maybe tonight's events hadn't sunk in.
I'm the
for
same
her.
way though. If I get excited
I was
about
supposed to
something,
meet
I'm not
them.
going to that. Yeah,
she
I can
want to be
try.
away from me?
It won't happen though.
Or was she just concerned about her friends' worry? I didn't answer her, but started the car and took her back. The nearer I got to the town, the harder it was to hold on to my purpose. I was just so close to him. If it was impossible, if I could never belong to nor deserve this girl, then where was the sense in letting the man go unpunished? Surely I could allow myself that much. No, I wasn't giving up, not yet. I wanted her too much to surrender. We were at the restaurant where she was supposed to meet her friends before I'd even begun to make sense of my thoughts.
So next this.
Jessica and Angela were finished eating, and both now truly worried about Bella. They were on their way to search for her, heading off along the dark street. It was not a good night for them to be wandering. How did you know where? Bella's unfinished question interrupted me, and I realized that I had made yet another gaffe. I'd been too distracted to remember to ask her where she was supposed to be trains. But instead of finishing the inquiry and pressing the point, Bella just shook her head and half smiled. What did that mean? Well, I didn't have time to puzzle over her strange acceptance of my stranger knowledge.
Aw, that's fun.
I
love
opened
that.
my door. What are you doing? She asked.
That sounds
sounding
way
startled.
cooler than any field trip I
Not
went
letting
on
you out
as
of
a
my
kid.
sight. Not allowing myself to be alone tonight. In that order. I'm taking you to dinner. Well, this should be interesting. It seemed like another night entirely when I'd imagined bringing Alice along and pretending to choose the same restaurant as Bella and her friends by accident. And now here I was, practically on a date with the girl. Only it didn't count because I wasn't giving her a chance to say no. She already had her door half open before I'd walked around the car. It wasn't usually so frustrating to have to move at an inconspicuous speed. Instead of allowing me to get it for her, I waited for her to join me, getting more anxious as her girlfriends continued toward the dark corner. Go stop Jessica and Angela before I have to track them down too, I ordered quickly. I don't think I could restrain myself if I ran into your other friends again. No, I would not
Yeah,
be
I'll
strong
cross
enough.
my fingers for him.
She shuddered, and then quickly collected herself.
That's awesome.
She took half a step after them, calling, "Jess, Angela!"
Water fights are
in a
never a
loud
bad
voice.
time.
They turned and she waved her arm over her head
Unless
to
they
catch
happen
their
indoors. I
attention.
don't like water fights when they happen indoors.
Oh, she's safe, Angela thought with relief. Late much? Jessica grumbled to herself,
Oh,
but she
God.
too was thankful that Bella wasn't lost or hurt. This made me like her a little more than I had. They hurried back and then stopped, shocked when they saw me beside her. Jessica thought, stunned. No freaking way. Edward Cullen? Did she go away by herself to find him? But why would she ask about them being out of town if she knew he was here? I got a brief flash of Bella's mortified expression when she'd asked Angela if my family was often absent from school. No, she couldn't have known, Angela decided. Jessica's thoughts were moving past the surprise and onto suspicion. Bella's been holding out on me. Where have you been? She demanded, staring at Bella but peeking at me from the corner of her eye. I got lost, and then I ran into Edward, Bella said, waving one hand toward me. Her tone was remarkably normal, as though that were truly all that had happened. She must be in shock. That was the only explanation for her calm. Would it be all right if I joined you? I asked, to be polite. I knew they'd already eaten. Holy crap, but he's hot, Jessica thought, her head suddenly slightly incoherent. Angela wasn't much more composed. Wish we hadn't eaten. Wow, just wow. Now why couldn't I do that to Bella? Sure, Jessica agreed. Angela frowned. Actually, Bella, we already ate while we were waiting, she admitted. Sorry. Shut up, Jessica complained internally. Bella shrugged casually.
Oh, no.
So at ease. Definitely in shock. That's fine. I'm not hungry. I think we should eat something. I disagreed. She needed sugar in her bloodstream, though it smelled sweet enough as it was, I thought wryly. The horror was going to come crashing down on her momentarily, and an empty stomach wouldn't help. She was an easy fainter, as I knew from experience. These girls wouldn't be in any danger if they went straight home. Danger didn't stalk their every step. And I'd rather be alone with Bella, as long as she was willing to be alone with me. Do you mind if I drive Bella home tonight? I said to Jessica before Bella could respond. That way you won't have to wait while she eats. No problem, I guess. Jessica stared intently at Bella, looking for some sign that this was what she wanted. She probably wants him to herself. Who wouldn't? Jess thought. At the same time, she watched Bella wink. Bella winked? Okay, Angela said quickly, in a hurry to be out of the way if that was what Bella
Hey,
wanted.
Charm.
And it seemed that she
How's it
did
going?
want that. See you tomorrow, Bella. Edward? She struggled to say my name in a casual tone. Then she grabbed Jessica's hand and began towing her away. I would find some way to thank Angela for this. Jessica's car was close by in a bright circle of light cast by a street lamp.
I'm pretty good.
Bella watched them carefully,
I did
a little
yoga
crease
today.
of concern
Day 3
between
of my
her eyes,
fast.
until they were in the car. So she must be
Taking another
somewhat
me day.
aware
Thank
of
you
the
for the
danger
heart.
she'd been in. Jessica waved as she drove away, and Bella waved back.
I've
It
really just
wasn't
been
until the
sleeping a
car
lot.
disappeared that she took a deep breath and turned to look up at me. Honestly, I'm not hungry, she said. Why had she waited for them to be gone before speaking? Did she truly want to be alone with me? Even now, after witnessing my literal homicidal rage? Whether or not that was the case, she was going to eat something. Humor me, I said. I held the restaurant door open for her and waited. She sighed and walked through. I walked beside her to the podium where the hostess waited. Bella still seemed entirely self-possessed. I wanted to touch her hand, her forehead, to check her temperature, but my cold hand would repulse her, as it had before. Oh my! The hostess's rather loud mental voice intruded into my consciousness. My, oh my! It seemed to be my night to turn heads. Or was I only noticing it more because I wished so much that Bella would see me this way? We were always attracted to our prey, but I'd never thought so much about it before. Usually, unless as with people like Shelley Cope and Jessica Stanley, there was constant repetition to dull the horror, the fear kicked in fairly quickly after the initial attraction. A table for two? I prompted when the hostess didn't speak. What a voice. Oh, yes. Welcome to La Bella Italia. Please follow me. Her thoughts were preoccupied, calculating. Maybe she's his cousin. She couldn't be his sister. They don't look anything alike. But family, definitely. He can't be with her. Human eyes were clouded. They saw nothing clearly. How could this small-minded woman find my physical lures, snares for prey, so attractive and yet be unable to see the soft perfection of the girl beside me? Well, no need to help her out, just in case. The hostess thought as she led us to a family-sized table in the middle of the most crowded part of the restaurant. Can I give him my number while she's there? She mused. I pulled a bill from my back pocket. People were invariably cooperative when money was involved. Bella was already taking the seat the hostess indicated without objection. I shook my head at her, and she hesitated, cocking her head to one side with curiosity. Yes, she would be very curious tonight. A crowd was not the ideal place for this conversation. Perhaps something more private, I requested of the hostess, handing her the money. She started, surprised, and then her hand curled around the tip. Sure. She peeked at the bill while she led us around the dividing wall. $50 for a better table? Rich, too.
Thanks for the rose,
That
Charm.
makes sense. I bet his jacket cost more than my
Memorial Day.
last
Did that
paycheck.
happen already?
Damn. Why does he want
I didn't
privacy with
actually.
her?
I didn't actually
She
pay
offered us a
attention
booth
to
in a
it.
quiet corner of the
was
restaurant
yours?
where
Do
no
anything
one
fun?
would be able to see us, to see Bella's reactions to whatever I would tell her. I had no clue as to what she would want from me tonight, or what
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
give
some
her.
holidays I just like.
How
don't
much
even-
had she
Don't even
guessed?
think about it.
What explanation of tonight's events had she invented to make sense of it all? How's this? The hostess asked. Perfect, I told her,
All right.
and feeling slightly annoyed by her resentful attitude toward Bella, smiled widely at her, baring my teeth. Let her see me
Okay.
clearly. Whoa. Your server will be right out. He can't be real. Maybe she'll disappear. Maybe I'll write my number on his plate with marinara. She wandered away, listing slightly to the side. Odd. She still wasn't frightened. I suddenly remembered Emmett teasing me in the cafeteria so many weeks ago. I'll bet I could have frightened her better than that. Was I losing my edge? You really shouldn't do that to people, Bella interrupted my thoughts in a disapproving tone. It's hardly fair. I stared at her critical expression. What did she mean? I hadn't frightened the hostess at all, despite my intentions. Do what? Dazzle them like that. She's probably hyperventilating in the kitchen right now. Bella was very nearly right. The hostess was only semi-coherent at the moment, describing her incorrect assessment of me to her friend on the waitstaff. "Oh, come on," Bella chided me when I didn't answer immediately. "You have to know the effect you have on people." I dazzle people? That was an interesting way of phrasing it. Accurate enough for tonight. I wondered why the difference. "You haven't noticed?" she asked, still critical.
Your daughter's birthday.
"Do you think
Saturday.
everybody gets
Aw,
their way so
that's
easily?"
Sweet.
"Do
Where'd you
I
guys go?
dazzle you?"
Or did you do it at home?
I voiced my curiosity impulsively.
Most birthdays, I
and then the
prefer
words were
home-
out and it was
home-cooked
too late to recall them.
meals. I just do like something
But
special.
before I had time to regret
Like
too
this year we
deeply
did
speaking
empanadas.
the words aloud, she answered, "Frequently." And her cheeks
sounds
took on a
nice.
faint pink
Nice,
glow.
intimate, at home.
I dazzled her. My silent heart swelled with a hope more intense than I could ever remember having felt before. "Hello," someone said, the waitress introducing herself. Her thoughts were loud and more explicit than the hostess's, but I tuned her out. I stared at Bella instead, watching the blood spreading across her cheekbones, noticing not how that made my throat flame, but rather how it brightened her fair face, how it set off the cream of her skin. The waitress was waiting for something from me. She'd asked for her drink order. I continued to gaze at Bella, and the waitress grudgingly
that's
turned
nice.
to
What do you
look at her
watch?
too. "I'll have a Coke," Bella said, as
On
if
my birthday,
asking
we
for
watched
approval.
Lorax. I hadn't
2
seen it
Cokes,
before.
I amended. Thirst, normal human thirst, was a sign of shock. I would make sure she had extra sugar from the soda in her system. She looked healthy, though. More than healthy. She looked radiant. "What?" she demanded, wondering why I was staring, I guessed. I was vaguely aware that the waitress had left. "How are you feeling?" I asked. She blinked, surprised by the question. "I'm fine." "You don't feel dizzy, sick, cold?" She was even more confused now. "Should I?" "Well, I'm actually waiting for you to go into shock." I half smiled, expecting her denial. She would not want to be taken care of. It took her a moment to answer me. Her eyes were slightly unfocused. She looked that way sometimes when I smiled at her. Was she dazzled? I would have loved to believe that. "I don't think that will happen. I've always been very good at repressing unpleasant things," she answered, a little breathless. Did she have a lot of practice with unpleasant things then? Was her life always this hazardous? "Just the same," I told her. "I'll feel better when you have some sugar and food in you." The waitress returned with the Cokes and a basket of bread. She put them in front of me and asked for my order, trying to catch my eye in the process. I indicated that she should attend to Bella, and then went back to tuning her out. She had a vulgar mind. Bella glanced quickly at the menu. "I'll have the mushroom ravioli." The waitress turned back to me eagerly. "And you?" "Nothing for me." Bella made a slight face. She must have noticed that I never ate food. She noticed everything, and I always forgot to be careful around her. I waited till we were alone again. "Drink," I insisted. I was surprised when she complied immediately and without objection. She drank until the glass was entirely empty, so I pushed the
Favorite
second
Disney
Coke toward
movies?
her, frowning.
Aw.
Thirst.
Those are like top tier.
Shock. She drank a little more and then shuddered once. "Are you cold?" "It's just the Coke," she said, but shivered again, her lips trembling slightly as if her teeth were about to chatter.
Interesting.
The pretty blouse she wore looked too thin to protect her adequately. It clung to her like a second skin, almost as fragile as the first. "Don't you have a jacket?" "Yes." She looked around herself, a little perplexed. "Oh, I left it in Jessica's car." I pulled off my jacket, wishing that the gesture was not marred by my body temperature. It would have been nice to offer her a warm coat. She stared at me, her cheeks flushing again. What was she thinking now? I handed her the jacket across the table, and she put it on at once, and then shuddered again. Yes, it would be very nice to be warm. "Thanks," she said. She took a deep breath and then pushed the 2 long sleeves back to free her hands. She took another deep breath. Was the evening finally settling in? Her color was still good. Her skin was cream and roses against the deep blue of her shirt. That color blue looks lovely with your skin, I complimented her. Just being honest. She looked well.
Yeah, I'm
but
behind
there
on
was no point in taking
my
chances.
Disney movies though.
I
I
pushed
think
the
if I had
basket
to
of bread
pick one
toward
that
her.
was my favorite,
Really? She
I would probably say
objected,
Mulan.
guessing my motives. I'm not going into
but I
shock.
haven't seen a lot of the newer ones.
You should be. A normal person would be.
I think the
You
last
don't
new one I
even
saw
look
was like
shaky.
Frozen.
I stared at her, disapproving, wondering why she couldn't be normal, and then wondering whether I really wanted her to be that way. I feel very safe with you, she explained, her eyes again filled with trust. Trust I didn't deserve. Her instincts were all wrong, backward. That must be the problem. She didn't recognize danger the way a human being should be able to. She had the opposite reaction. Instead of running, she lingered, drawn to what should frighten her. How could I protect her from myself when neither of us wanted that?
Apparently they made a Frozen 2.
This is
I
more
had no bloody
complicated
idea.
than I planned, I murmured. I could see her turning the words over in her head, and I wondered what she made of them. She took a breadstick and began to eat without seeming aware of the action.
Still stunned
She
him.
chewed for a moment, and then leaned her head
It's
to
word on
one
the street.
side thoughtfully.
I
Usually,
heard
you're
there
in a
was a
better
Frozen
mood
2.
when your eyes are so light,
But
she
low-key,
said.
Disney has a really bad reputation of any kind of sequel.
Stated so
I heard.
matter-of-factly.
I mean,
left me
I haven't
blue.
seen any really sequels myself.
You're
But,
always
like, I
crabby
heard
when
every
your eyes
Disney
are black.
sequel's terrible.
I expected that. I have a theory about that, she added lightly.
Except for
So,
maybe the Toy Story
She
show.
had
Those were
come up with her
Pixar.
own explanation.
I take it back.
Of course she had. I felt a deep sense of dread as I wondered how close she'd come to the truth. More theories. She chewed on another bite, entirely nonchalant, as if she weren't discussing
Hey,
the
Chris,
aspects
thanks
of
for the
a
like.
demon with
How
the
you doing,
demon
buddy?
himself. I hope you were more creative this time, I lied when she didn't continue. What I really hoped was that she was wrong, miles wide of the mark.
Oh my God, he's
Or are you still stealing from
Come on.
comic books?
Come on. Yes.
Well, no. I didn't get it from a comic book.
Oh, really?
She said, a little embarrassed. But I didn't come up with it on my own either. And I asked between my teeth. Surely she would not speak so
I
calmly.
guess we're just
if she
running
were
for it.
about
We're not
to
going to
scream.
heal.
As she hesitated, biting her lip, the
Oh,
waitress
no.
reappeared with
Oh,
Bella's
no,
food.
no.
I paid
no.
the server little attention as she set the plate in front of
Isa.
Bella and then asked if I wanted anything. I declined, but asked for more Coke. The waitress hadn't noticed the empty glasses. You were saying? I prompted anxiously as soon as Bella and I were alone again. I'll tell you about it in the car, she said in a low voice.
Oh, I guess he's being
This
nice.
would be bad.
I absolutely
wasn't
will.
going to
Everybody,
strike
Chris is
against
looking
me.
for a person. I'm pretty
If-
sure a man.
She tapped
You
on
should
something.
definitely marry him, take him off the market,
Conditions.
send him DMs.
I was so
He loves
tense,
it
I
when you
almost
send him
growled.
DMs asking to marry him.
I do have a few questions, of course. Of course, I agreed, my voice hard. Her questions would probably be enough to tell me where her thoughts were heading. But how would I answer them? With responsible lies? Or would I drive her away with truth?
All right,
Or
time
would
to
I say
go.
nothing, unable to decide? We sat in silence while the
Oh my
waitress
God.
replenished her supply of soda. Go ahead, I said, jaw locked, when she was
How's your day going, man? What you doing?
Why are you in Port Angeles? That was too easy a question for her. It gave away nothing, while my answer, if truthful, would give away much too much. Let her reveal something first.
That
Next,
sounds
I said.
boring.
But that's the easiest one. Next, I said again.
What do you do for work?
She was frustrated by my refusal. She looked away from me, down at her food, slowly, thinking hard. She took a bite and chewed with deliberation. Suddenly, as she ate,
Sort of.
a strange
this is
comparison
Midnight
entered my
Sun.
head.
It's the
For
first
just a
book,
second,
but from Edward's
I saw
perspective.
Persephone,
It's my first time
pomegranate
listening
in
to
hand,
it.
dooming herself to
It's
the
pretty good so
underworld.
far. I like it.
Is that who I was? Hades himself, coveting
Finance,
springtime,
okay.
stealing it,
Fair enough.
condemning it to endless
I
night.
think that's a plus on your
I tried
proposal
unsuccessfully
card.
to shake the impression.
Working
She
from
washed her
home,
bite
also
down with
pretty
more
awesome.
Coke, and then finally
I've been
looked
looking
up
for a
at me.
work from home job.
Her eyes were narrow
Like I thought
with
about
suspicion.
transcription or
Okay
something
then,
like that.
she said. Let's say, hypothetically, of course, that someone could know what people are thinking. Read minds, you know, with a few exceptions.
It's a long down.
It could be worse. This explained that little half smile in the car. She was quick. No one else had ever guessed this about me, except for Carlyle. And it had been rather obvious then, in the beginning, when I'd answered all his thoughts as if he'd spoken them to me. He'd understood before I had. This question wasn't so bad. While it was clear that she knew there was something wrong with me, it was not as serious as it could have been. Mind reading was, after all, not a facet of vampire canon. I went along with her hypothesis. Just one exception, I corrected. Hypothetically. She fought a smile. My vague honesty pleased her.
Is that
All
a
right.
killer?
With one exception, then.
It isn't.
How does that work? What are the limitations? How would that someone find someone else at exactly the right time? How would he know that she was in trouble? Hypothetically? Sure. Her lips twitched, and her liquid brown eyes were eager. Well, I hesitated. If that's someone. Let's call him Joe, she suggested. I had to smile at her enthusiasm. Did she really think the truth
I am
would
a
be
natural
good
blue.
thing?
How can you tell?
If my secrets
This is
were
my
pleasant,
default.
why would I keep them from her?
I'm actually an
Joe.
android.
I agreed. If Joe had been paying attention, the timing wouldn't have needed to be quite so exact. I shook my head and professed
Oh,
a
no.
shudder at the thought of how close I had been to being too late today.
Thank
Only
you.
you could get into
I need to
trouble
re-dye
and
it.
tell me
I
sooner.
think I'm gonna try and
You
grow
would
it
have
out. Though.
devastated their crime rate statistics for a
Not
decade.
like long.
Her
Hold on,
lips
let me
turned
get
down
a
at the
picture.
corners and pouted. We were speaking of a hypothetical case. I laughed at her irritation. Her lips, her skin, they looked so soft. I wanted to see if they were as velvety as they appeared.
They're not gonna heal me.
My touch would be repellent to her. Yes, we were, I said, returning to the
When I was
conversation before
younger,
I
I
could
always
depress
wanted
myself
to
too
do like
thoroughly.
a slick back haircut.
Shall we call you
And I'm thinking
Jane?
about growing it out a little bit and
She
doing
leaned
that.
across the table toward me.
I'm not sure if it's
all
gonna look
humor
good or
and
not, but I
irritation gone
figure
from her
I'll try
expression.
it out and decide
How did you
after
know?
that.
She asked, her voice low and intense.
So I'm gonna have an awkward phase.
Should I tell her the truth? And if so, what portion?
Yeah, I mean,
I
what's the
wanted
worst
to
that
tell her.
happens? I cut it.
I wanted to deserve the trust I
Might as
could
well,
still
right?
see on her face.
This is the year
As
of
if she could hear my
experimentation.
thoughts, she whispered. You can trust me, you know. She reached one hand forward as if to touch my hands where they rested on top of the empty table before me. I pulled them back, hating the thought of her reaction to my frigid stone skin, and she dropped her hand. I knew that I could trust her with protecting my secrets. She was entirely honorable, good to the core. But I couldn't trust her not to be horrified by them. She should be horrified. The truth was horror. I don't know if I have a choice anymore, I murmured. I remembered that I'd once teased her by calling her exceptionally unobservant. Offended her, if I'd been judging her expressions correctly. Well, I could right that one injustice at least. I was wrong. You're much more observant than I gave you credit for. And though she might not realize it, I'd given her plenty of credit already. I thought you were always
finish
right,
the
she
jam.
said,
What a
smiling
gentleman.
as she teased me.
Thank you, Ghost
I
Dad.
used to be. I used to know what I was doing. I used to be always sure of my course. And now everything was chaos and tumult. Yet, I wouldn't trade it. Not if the chaos meant that I could be near Bella. I was wrong about you on one other thing as well, I went on, setting the record straight on a second point. You're not a magnet for accidents. That's not a broad enough classification. You are a magnet for trouble. If there's anything dangerous within a 10-mile radius, it will invariably find you. Why her? What had she done to deserve any of this? Bella's face turned serious again. And you put yourself into that category? Honesty was more important in regard to this question than any other. Unequivocally. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Not suspicious now, but oddly concerned. Her lips curved into that one specific smile that I had only seen on her face when she was confronted with someone else's pain. She reached her hand across the table again, slowly and deliberately. I pulled my hands an inch away from her, but she ignored that, determined to touch me. I held my breath, not because of her scent now, but because of the sudden, overwhelming tension. Fear.
Captain Sabaho.
My skin would disgust her.
To the rescue.
She would run away.
Oh shit, I got snapped.
She brushed her fingertips lightly across the back of my
This is
hand.
bad.
The heat of her
This
gentle,
is
willing
bad.
touch was like nothing I'd ever felt before.
Oh shit.
It was almost pure pleasure. Would have been, except for my fear. I watched her face as she felt the cold stone of my skin, still unable to breathe. Her smile of concern shifted into something wider, something warmer. Thank you, she said, meeting my stare with an intense gaze of her own. That's twice now. Her soft fingers lingered against my skin, as if they found it pleasant to be there. I answered her as casually as I was able. Let's not try for 3.
Not little teapot.
She
His name is
scowled a
Little
little at
Teapot.
that, but nodded. I pulled my hands out from under hers. As exquisite as her touch felt, I wasn't going to wait for the magic of her tolerance to pass, to turn to revulsion. I hid my hands under the table. I read her eyes. Though her mind was silent, I could perceive both trust and wonder there. I realized in that moment that I wanted to answer her questions. Not because I owed it to her. Not because I wanted her to trust me. I wanted her to know me. I followed you to Port Angeles, I told her, the words spilling out too quickly for me to edit them. I knew the danger of the truth, the risk I was taking.
I really felt
At
the
any
same
moment,
thing
her
twice.
unnatural calm could shatter into hysterics. Contrarily, knowing this only had me talking faster. I've never tried to keep a specific
That hurt my
person
pride.
alive before, and it's much more troublesome than I would have believed.
Damn, that was my
But
death
that's
hit.
probably just
Oh
because
my
it's
God.
you. Ordinary people seem to make it through the day without so
dignity.
many catastrophes. I watched her, waiting. She smiled wider again. Her clear, dark eyes seemed deeper than ever. I just admitted to stalking her, and she was smiling. Did you ever think that maybe my number was up that first time, with the van, and that you've been interfering with fate? She asked. That wasn't the first time, I said, staring down at the dark maroon tablecloth, my shoulders bowed in shame. Barriers down, the truth still spilling free recklessly. Your number was up the first time I met you. It was true, and it angered me. I had been positioned over her life like the blade of a guillotine, as though it was ordained by fate, just as she said. As if she'd been
This guy's
marked
such
for
a
death
tool.
by that cruel, unjust fate. And since I'd proved an unwilling tool, it continued to try to execute her. I imagined the fate personified, a grisly, jealous hag, a vengeful harpy. I wanted something, someone, to be responsible for this, so that I would have something concrete to fight against. Something, anything to destroy, so that Bella could be safe. Bella was very quiet. Her breathing had accelerated. I looked up at her, knowing I would finally see the fear I was waiting for. Had I not just admitted how close I'd been to killing her? Closer than the van that had come within slim inches of crushing the life from her body. And yet, her face was still calm, her eyes still tightened only with concern. You remember? Yes, she said, her voice level and grave. Her deep eyes were full of awareness. She knew. She knew that I had wanted to murder her. Where were her screams? And yet here you sit, I said, pointing out the inherent contradiction. Yes,
Fucking go.
here I sit. Because of you. Her expression altered, turned curious, as she unsubtly changed the subject. Because somehow you knew how to
I
find
forgot
me
to
today.
take a class. I'm probably a
Hopelessly. I pushed one more time at the
scout.
barrier that protected her thoughts, desperate to understand. It made no logical sense to me. How could she even care about the rest with that glaring truth on the table? She waited, only curious. Her skin was pale, which was natural for her, but it still concerned me. Her dinner sat nearly untouched in front of her. If I continued to tell her too much, she was going to need a buffer when the shock set in at last. I named my terms. You eat, I'll talk. She processed that for half a second, and then threw a bite into her mouth with a speed that belied her calm. She was more anxious for my answer than her eyes let on. It's harder than it should be, keeping track of you, I told her. Usually I can find someone very easily once I've heard their mind before.
No.
I watched her face carefully
No.
as I said this.
I need it.
Guessing right was one thing. Having it confirmed was another. She was motionless, her eyes blank. I felt my teeth clench together as I waited for her panic. But she just blinked once, swallowed loudly, and then quickly scooped another bite into her mouth, eager for me to continue. I was keeping tabs on Jessica, I went on, watching each word as it sank in. Not carefully. Like I said, only you could find trouble in Port Angeles. I couldn't resist
one
adding
down.
that. Was she aware that other human beings were also have near-death experiences? Or did she think the things that happened to her were normal? And at first, I didn't notice when you took off on your own. Then, when I realized that you weren't with her anymore, I went looking for you at the bookstore I saw in her head. I could tell that you hadn't gone in and that you'd gone south.
Oh, he did not accept.
You would have to turn around soon. So I was just waiting for you, randomly searching through the thoughts of people on the street to see if
Yep,
anyone
and
had
very
noticed
angry
you, so I
Oni.
would know where you were. I had no reason to be worried, but
I'm not sure if he's decided to kill me or not.
My breath came faster as I
Yeah, he
remembered
decided.
feeling the
And
pain.
the other one's a ghost
Her
face.
scent blazed in my throat, and I was glad. It was a pain that meant she was alive. As long as I
There's
burned,
that.
she was safe. I started to drive in
Oh,
circles,
there's a
still.
chest though. I need one
Listen.
more chest for my challenge.
I hope the word made sense to her. This had to be confusing. The sun was
Japanese
finally
maple?
setting, and I
Oh
was
my God,
about
they
to
have
get out and
Japanese
follow
maples
you
in
on
this
foot.
game.
And then, as the memory took me, perfectly
beautiful
clear
tree.
and as vivid as if I was in the moment again, I felt the same
How
murderous
bad could
fury
the fog
wash
be
through my
if they have
body,
fucking trees?
locking it into ice. I wanted him dead. He should be dead. My jaw clenched tight as I concentrated on holding myself here at the table. Bella still needed me. That was what mattered. Then what? She whispered, her dark eyes huge. I heard what they were thinking. I said through my teeth, unable to keep the words from coming out in a growl. I saw your face in his mind. I still knew precisely where to find him. His black thoughts sucked at the night sky, pulling me toward them. I covered my face, knowing my expression was that of a hunter, a killer. I fixed her image behind my closed eyes to control myself. The delicate framework of her bones, the thin sheath of
There
her
he
pale
is.
skin, like silk stretched over glass, incredibly soft and easy to shatter. She was too vulnerable for this world. She needed a
Alright,
protector.
my challenge is done. I
And
don't
through
need to
some
live
twisted
anymore.
mismanagement of destiny, I was the closest thing available. I tried to explain my violent reaction so that she would
She's
understand.
really not gonna help
It was very
this bitch.
hard. You can't imagine how hard for me to simply take you away and leave them. I could have let you go with Jessica and Angela, but I was afraid if you left me alone, I would go looking for them. For the second time tonight, I confessed to an intended murder. At least this one was defensible. She was quiet as I struggled to control myself. I listened to her heartbeat. The rhythm was irregular, but it slowed as the time passed until it was steady again. Her breathing, too, was low and even. I was too close to the edge. I needed to get her home before. Would I kill him then? Would I become a murderer again when she trusted me? Was there any way to stop myself?
Hey, Sam. How's
She
it going?
promised to tell me her latest theory when
Long
we were
time no
alone.
see.
Did I want to hear it? I was anxious for it. But would the reward for my curiosity be worse than not knowing? At any rate, she must have had enough truth for one night. I looked at her again, and her
Ooh.
face was paler than before,
Hey, guys.
but composed. Are you ready to go home? I asked. I'm ready to leave, she said, choosing her words carefully, as if a simple yes did not
I've
fully
been
express
mostly
what she
on in the
wanted to say.
mornings. Probably when you're asleep. I'd say
The
like
waitress
6
returned.
to 10.
She'd heard Bella's
is when I've
last
been
statement
streaming,
as she dithered on the other side of the partition, wondering what more she could offer me.
which for you would
I
be
wanted
like
to roll my eyes at some of the offerings she
what,
had in
3
mind.
to 7 or something.
How are we doing? She asked me. We're ready for the check, thank you. I told her, my eyes on Bella. The waitress's breathing spiked, and she was momentarily, to use Bella's phrasing, dazzled by my voice. In a sudden moment of perception, hearing the way my voice sounded in this inconsequential human's head, I realized why I seemed to be attracting so much admiration tonight, unmarred by the usual fear. It was because of Bella. Trying so hard to be safe for her, to be less frightening, to be human. I truly had lost my edge.
Thank you.
The other
I need
humans
to
saw
diet again.
only beauty now, with my innate horror so
He's literally
carefully
like
under
right the fuck
control.
there.
I looked up at the waitress, waiting for her to recover herself. It was sort of humorous now that I understood the reason. Sure, here you go. She handed me the folder with the bill, thinking of the card she slid in behind the receipt. A card with her name and telephone number. Yes, it
Oh
was
no,
rather funny.
he wants me dead too.
I had money ready again. I gave the folder back at once so she wouldn't waste any time waiting for a call that would never come.
I thought he was
No
for sure
change,
gonna spare
I told
me.
her, hoping the size of the tip would assuage her disappointment. I stood and Bella quickly followed suit. I wanted to offer her my hand, but
Hey,
I
cop
thought
lady.
that might be pushing my luck a little too far for one night. I thanked the
Who is
waitress,
that?
my eyes never leaving Bella's
What
face.
character is that?
Bella seemed to be finding something amusing, too. I walked as close beside her as I dared, close enough that the warmth coming off her was like a physical touch against the left side of my body. As I held the door for her, she sighed quietly, and I wondered what regret weighed on her. I stared into her eyes, about to ask, when she suddenly looked at the ground, seeming embarrassed. It made me more curious, even as it made me reluctant to ask. The silence between us continued while I opened her door for her, and then got into the car. I turned the heater on. The warmer weather had come to an abrupt end. The cold car would be uncomfortable for her. She huddled in my jacket, a small smile on her lips,
Oh, son of a
Waited.
bitch.
postponing the conversation until the lights of the boardwalk faded. It made me feel more alone with her. Was that the right thing? Her seemed very small. Her scent swirled through it with the current of the heater, building
That Oni
and
had it in for
strengthening.
me the entire time.
It grew into its own force, like a
At least I don't
third
have to be
entity
Ace
in the
anymore.
car, a presence
I can go
that
back to being
demanded
Slutty David.
recognition. It had that. I burned. The burning was acceptable, though. It seemed strangely appropriate to me. I had been given so much tonight,
Slutty
more
David
than I
is
had
my new
expected.
favorite character.
And here she was, still willingly at my side. I owed something in return for that.
It's always good to
A
see you, Sam. Thanks
sacrifice.
for hanging out.
A burnt offering. Now, if I could
And thank
just
you for the
keep it to
rose.
that, just burn and nothing more. But the venom filled my mouth, and my muscles tensed in anticipation, as if I were hunting. I had to keep such thoughts from my mind, and I knew what would distract me. Now, I said to her, fear of her response taking the edge off the burn. It's your turn. Chapter 10. Theory. Can I ask just one more? she entreated, instead of answering my demand. I was on
That would be
edge,
the best one
anxious
yet.
for the
Oh my
worst.
God.
And yet, how tempting it was to prolong this moment, to have her with me, willingly, for just a few seconds longer. I sighed at the dilemma, and then said, "One." "Well," she hesitated for a moment, as if deciding which question to voice. "You said you knew I hadn't gone into the bookstore, and that I had gone south. I was just wondering how you knew that." I glared out the windshield. Here was another question that revealed nothing on her part and too much on mine. "I thought we were past all the evasiveness," she said, her tone critical and disappointed. How ironic. She was relentlessly evasive, without even trying. Well, she wanted me to be direct, and this conversation wasn't going anywhere good regardless. "Fine then," I said. "I followed your scent." I wanted to watch her face, but I was afraid of what I would see. Instead, I listened to her breath accelerate and then stabilize. She spoke again after a moment, and her voice was steadier than I would have expected. "And then you didn't answer one of my first questions," she said. I looked down at her, frowning. She was stalling too. "Which one?" "How does it work, the mind-reading thing?" she asked, reiterating her question from the restaurant. "Can you read anybody's mind, anywhere? How do you do it? Can the rest of your family?" She trailed off, flushing again. "That's more than one," I said. She just looked at me, waiting for her answers. And why not tell her? She'd already guessed most of this, and it was an easier subject than the one that loomed. "No, it's just me. And I can't hear anyone anywhere. I have to be fairly close. The more familiar someone's voice is, the farther away I can hear them. But still no more than a few miles." I tried to think of a way to describe it so that she would understand. An analogy that she could relate to. "It's a little like being in a huge hall filled with people, everyone talking at once. It's just a hum, a buzzing of voices in the background, until I focus on one voice, and then what they're thinking is clear. Most of the time I tune it all out. It can be very distracting.
Hey,
And then
Dahlia.
it's easier to seem
morning.
normal," I scowled, "when I'm not accidentally answering someone's thoughts rather than their words."
How's your day going?
"Why do you think you can't hear me?" she wondered. I gave her another truth and another analogy. "I don't know," I admitted. "The only guess I have is that maybe your mind doesn't work the same way the rest of theirs do. Like
Wow.
your
I'm
thoughts are
95,000.
on the AM frequency and I'm only getting FM." I realized as soon as the words were out that she would not like this
Oh,
analogy.
nice.
The anticipation of her reaction had me smile.
That's kind of a short shift.
She
Wait,
didn't
what time is it for
disappoint.
you?
"My mind doesn't work right?" she asked, her voice rising. "I'm a freak?" The irony. I hear
I'm
voices
fucking
in my mind,
offended.
and you're worried that you're the freak? I laughed.
You just snatched
She
me off my
understood all
generator.
the small things, and yet the big
Oh, your
ones she
mountain
got
time, right.
backward.
So you're 2
Always
hours
the
different.
wrong instincts. Bella was gnawing
guess
on
that's
her
pretty
lip,
early.
and the crease between her eyes was etched deep.
6 to 2:30?
"Don't
That
worry,"
ain't so bad.
I reassured her.
6:30 to 2:30?
"It's just a theory." And there was a more important theory to be discussed. I was
Swipe
anxious
some
to
badges
get it
for
over
me.
with. Each passing second was
And make
beginning
sure
to
that if you
feel
deny
more
somebody
and more
entry
like
to the
borrowed
building, you
time.
do it in the funniest way
Which
possible.
brings us
I don't know
back
how.
to you.
Nothing.
She
Make
sighed,
it funny, though.
still chewing her lip. I worried that she would hurt herself. She stared into my eyes, her face troubled. "Aren't we past all the evasions now?" I asked quietly. She looked down, struggling with some internal dilemma. Suddenly, she stiffened and her eyes flew wide open. Fear flashed across her face for the first time. "Holy crow!" she gasped. I panicked. What had she seen? How had I frightened her? Then she shouted, "Slow down!" "What's wrong?" I didn't understand where her terror was coming from. "You're going 100 miles an hour!" she yelled at me. She flashed a look out the window and recoiled from the dark trees racing past us. I This little thing, just a bit of speed, had her
On
shouting
shirtless
in
David,
fear.
you can see all of the
I rolled my
slugs, like
eyes.
tentacles going
Relax,
through his
Bella.
back.
Are you trying to kill us? She demanded, her voice high and tight. We're not going to crash, I promised her. She sucked in a sharp breath and then spoke in a slightly more level tone. Why are you in such a hurry? I always drive like this. I met her gaze, amused by her shocked expression.
Wow.
Keep your eyes on the road, she shouted. I've never been in an accident, Bella. I've never even gotten a ticket. I grinned at her and touched my forehead. It made it even more comical, the absurdity of being able to joke with her about something so secret and strange. Built-in radar detector. Very funny, she said sarcastically, her voice still more frightened than angry. Charlie's a cop, remember? I was raised to abide by traffic laws. Besides, if you turn us into a Volvo pretzel around a tree trunk, you can probably just walk away. Probably, I repeated, and then laughed without humor. Yes, we would fare quite differently in a car accident. She was right to be afraid, despite my driving abilities. But you can't. With a sigh, I let the car drift to a crawl.
Let's try this again.
Happy?
That did not
She
work out.
eyed the speedometer. Almost? Was this still too fast for her? I hate driving slow, I muttered, but let the needle slide down another notch. This is slow?
Survived
She
while
asked.
3 other survivors
Enough commentary
escaped
on
the
my
trial.
driving,
You
I
must
said
remain in the
impatiently.
trial while they
How many
escape.
times had she
Easy.
dodged my question now? 3 times? 4? Were her
you
speculations
survive?
that horrific? I had to know immediately.
The
I'm
squirrel.
still waiting for your latest theory. She
You
bit
have
her
my
lip again,
attention.
and her expression
What's up,
became
Brianna?
upset, almost pained. I
Welcome
reined
back.
in my impatience and softened my voice. I didn't want her to be distressed. I won't laugh, I promised, wishing that it were only embarrassment that made her unwilling to talk.
It worked. I saw it right
I'm
away.
more afraid that
There's no
you'll
arguing.
be angry with me, she whispered. I forced my voice to stay even. Is it that bad? Pretty much, yeah. She looked down, refusing to meet my eyes. The seconds passed. Go ahead, I encouraged.
Yeah, me too. I woke
Her
up at
voice was
2:30,
small.
but
I
I,
don't
had to
know
like
how
kill
to
time
start.
until like 5 so that
Why
I
don't
could
you
do
start
yoga.
at the beginning?
Because I'm trying to
I
stick to my
remembered her
routine.
words before dinner. You said you didn't
But
come
I'm
up with this
thinking
on
today's
your
like
own.
an early nap day.
No, she agreed, and then was silent again. I thought about things that might have inspired her. What got you started? A book? A movie?
Why were you
I
awake
should
so
have looked
early?
through her collections when she was
Just
out of the
couldn't sleep?
house. I had no idea if Bram Stoker or Anne Rice was there in her
I
stack of
call it a
worn
nap, but it's
paperbacks.
not really a nap. It's really
No,
like an
she said
8-hour
again.
middle of the day
It was Saturday
kind of
at the
sleep
beach.
situation.
I hadn't
We just
expected
call
that.
it a nap.
The local gossip about us had never strayed into anything too bizarre or too precise. Was there a new rumor I'd missed? Bella peeked up from her hands and saw the surprise on my face. I ran into an old family friend, Jacob
you
Black,
get up that early
she
to get
went
ready?
on. His dad and Charlie have been
wild.
friends since I was a baby. Jacob
Is it a long
Black.
commute?
The name was not familiar, and yet it reminded me of something. Some time, long ago. I stared at the windshield, flipping through memories to find the connection. His dad is one of the Quileute elders,
That
she said.
sucks. I mean,
Jacob
I'm used
Black.
to 30-minute commutes myself.
Ephraim Black. A
But
descendant,
like,
no
when you
doubt.
have to be there
was his
that
dad's
early,
lead.
that kind of commute is a
She knew the
problem.
truth.
You know?
My
or at least
mind
pain
was
in the
flying
ass.
through the ramifications as the car flew around the dark curves in the road. My body rigid with anguish, motionless except for the small automatic actions it took to steer. She knew the truth. But if she'd learned the truth
Right.
Saturday,
Working from
then
home
she'd
sounds
known
so
it
much more
all
comfortable.
evening long. And yet,
That's true. There's no traffic in
we
the
went
morning.
for a walk, she
When
went
I
on.
was driving
And
30
he was
minutes, it
telling me
buffered
about
on
some
for
old
sometimes.
legends, trying to scare me, I think. He told me one. She stopped short, but there was no need for her
I
qualms
didn't really
now.
mind being able to listen
I
to
knew what
music
she was
and just
going
chill
to say.
out. Like if it was really
The only
relaxed
mystery
drive.
left was why she was here with me now.
But I also didn't drive for 10 years and just learned how to again
About
this year.
vampires,
So like
she
I'm
breathed,
still stressed
the
out when I
words
drive
less
no
than
matter
a
what.
whisper. Somehow it was even worse than
How many
knowing
dogs
she
do you have,
was
Chris?
hearing
I
her
feel like
speak
that's
the
the
word
traffic.
aloud. I flinched at the sound of it, and then controlled myself again. And you immediately thought of me? I asked. No, mentioned your family. How ironic
Greg,
that it would be
what up,
Ephraim's own progeny that would violate the treaty he'd vowed to uphold. A grandson or great-grandson, perhaps. How many years had it been? 70? I should have realized that it was not the old men who believed in the legends that would be the danger. Of course, the younger generation, those who had been warned but would think the ancient superstitions laughable. That was where the danger of exposure lay. I suppose this meant I was now free to slaughter the small, defenseless tribe on the coastline, were I so inclined. Ephraim and his pack of protectors were long dead. He just thought it was a silly superstition, Bella said suddenly, her voice edged with a new anxiety, almost as if she could read my thoughts. He didn't expect me to think anything of it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her hands twist uneasily. It was my fault, she said after a brief pause, and then she hung her head as if she was ashamed. I forced him to tell me. Why? It wasn't so hard to keep my voice level now. The worst was already done. As long as we spoke in the details of the revelation, we didn't have to move on to the consequences of it. Lauren said something about you. She was trying to provoke me. She made a little face at the memory. I was slightly distracted, wondering how Bella would be provoked by someone talking about me.
Holy
And
shit,
an
that was
older boy
closer
from
than
the
I
tribe
thought.
said your family didn't come to the reservation. Only it sounded like he meant something different. So I got Jacob alone and I tricked it out of him. Her head dropped even lower as she admitted this, and her expression looked guilty. I looked away from her and laughed out loud. It was a hard edge.
Cats.
She
You have
felt
two
guilty.
cats?
What could she possibly have done to deserve censure of any kind? Tricked him how? I asked. I tried to flirt. It worked better than I thought it would, she explained, and her voice turned incredulous at the memory of that success. I could just imagine, considering the attraction she seemed to hold for all things male, totally unconscious on her part, how overwhelming she would be when she tried to be attractive.
Holy
I was
shit.
suddenly full
That's a lot
of
of
pity
cats.
for the unsuspecting
I
boy
only
she
ever
had
had, like,
used
one cat,
such a
one dog.
potent force on.
I did
I'd
a lot
like
of
to
like
have seen
snakes,
that, I
birds,
said,
fish, small
and then I
animals.
laughed again with dark humor. I wished I could have heard the boy's reaction, witnessed the devastation for myself. And you accused me of dazzling people. Poor Jacob Black. I wasn't
Nice.
as angry with the source of my exposure
No
as
men
I
in
would
the
have
house?
expected to feel. He
Unless
didn't
you have a
know that.
husband.
And how could I expect anyone to deny this girl
Boyfriend.
what she wanted? No. I only felt sympathy for the damage she would have done to his peace of mind. I felt her blush heat the air between us. I glanced at her, and she was staring out the window. She didn't speak
Exactly.
again.
Boyfriend?
do then?
Okay.
I cried.
Well, I guess one's
Time to
allowed.
get back to the story. I did some research
If
on
it goes
the
south, you can just stick all the other girls on.
And did that convince you? No, she said. Nothing fit. Most of it was kind of silly. And then
For sure.
she broke off again, and I heard her teeth lock together. What? I demanded. What had she found?
Run,
What
Maggie.
had made
Run.
sense of a nightmare for her?
Oh my
A short
god.
pause, and then she whispered, I decided it didn't matter.
It's complicated.
Shock froze my thoughts for a half second, and then it all fit together. Why she'd sent her friends
I
away
feel
tonight
like
rather than escape with them.
Every
Why she
situation
had
I've been
gotten
in
into
since
car
my
with me
divorce has been
instead of
complicated.
running, screaming
I get
for the
that.
police. Her reactions were always wrong, always completely wrong. She pulled danger toward herself. She invited it. It didn't matter, I said through my teeth, anger filling me.
Oh
How
my
was I
god.
supposed to protect someone so determined to be unprotected? No, she said in a low voice that was inexplicably tender. It doesn't matter to
He's
me.
a creepy one.
She was impossible. You don't care if I'm a monster? If I'm not human?
Hey, Alex.
I started to
Slash Sasha.
wonder if she was entirely stable. I suppose that I could arrange for her to receive the best care available. Carlisle would have the connections to find her the most skilled doctors, the most talented therapists.
Hey, lady.
Perhaps
Lady.
something could be done to fix
Help.
whatever it was that was wrong with her. Whatever it was that made her content to sit beside a vampire with her heart beating calmly and steadily. I would watch over the facility,
No.
naturally, and visit as often as she allowed.
I just got off the hook, man.
Angry, she sighed. I shouldn't have said anything. As if her hiding these disturbing tendencies would help either of us. No. I'd rather know what you're thinking, even if what you're thinking is insane.
All these bitches up.
So
all
I'm
up on
wrong
my bubble
again,
gum.
she asked, a bit belligerent now. That's not what I was referring to. My teeth clenched together again. It doesn't matter, I repeated in a scathing tone. She gasped. I'm right? Does it matter? I countered. She took a deep breath. I waited angrily for her answer. Not really, she said, her voice composed again. But I am curious. Not really. It didn't really matter. She didn't care. She knew I was inhuman, a horror, and this didn't really matter to her. Aside from my worries about her sanity, I began to feel a swelling of hope. I tried to quash it. What are you curious about? I asked her. There were no secrets left, only minor details. How old are you? She asked. My answer was automatic and ingrained. 17. And
Oh
how
yeah.
long have
If you ever
been
want to play, play with me.
I tried not
I don't
to
mind if
smile
you're
at her
learning.
patronizing tone.
I just like to play.
A while, I admitted. Okay, she said, abruptly enthusiastic. She smiled up at me. When I stared back, anxious again about her mental health,
Oh my
she
gosh,
smiled
please, Mr.
widely,
Oni. Please.
frowned. Don't laugh, she warned.
Please.
But how can you come out during the daytime? I laughed despite her request. Her research had not netted her anything unusual, it seemed. Myth, I told her. Burned by the sun? Myth. Sleeping in coffins? Myth. Sleep had not been a part of my life for so long.
I'm not sure
until
if
these
begging
last
for my
few
life
nights
worked
as
or
I
not.
watched Bella dreaming. I can't sleep, I murmured, answering her question more fully. She was silent for a moment. At all? She asked. Never, I breathed. As I met her penetrating gaze,
Oh, no.
read the surprise and the sympathy.
I mean, it's not that expensive of a
Abruptly
game.
yearned to sleep.
It's like 10, 20 bucks, something like that.
Oblivion as I
You
had
could always just
before,
get it yourself
not to
and play
escape
with me on your computer.
but because I wanted to dream. Maybe if I could be unconscious, if I could dream, I could live for a few hours in a world where she and I could be together. She dreamed of me. I wanted to dream of her.
Thank you for the roses.
She stared back at me, her expression full of wonder. I had to look away. I could not dream of her. She should not dream of me. You haven't asked me the most important question yet, I said. The stone heart of my silent chest felt colder and harder than before. She had to be forced to understand. At some point, she must be made to see that this all did matter. More than any other consideration. Considerations like the fact that I
Yeah.
loved her.
Upgrading is
Which
necessary.
one is that? She asked.
My original
surprised and
laptop
unaware.
wasn't like terrible.
This only made
This
my
is
voice
the one.
harder. I'm
It's like
concerned
a
about my
MacBook.
diet.
And I still use it, but I pretty much only watch things on
She
it because
spoke
it's
in a
not
quiet tone
it's
that I
not a
couldn't
good enough
interpret.
laptop to do anything
Yes.
else with.
That.
I can't like
Don't
use
you
it for
want to know
anything
if I
but
drink
basically a
blood?
TV screen.
She cringed away from my question.
I mean, it's nice for being able to like watch the stream
Well,
on and everything.
Jacob said something about that, she said.
the
what
stream
did
and
Jacob say?
Netflix.
He said you didn't hunt people. He said your family wasn't supposed to be dangerous because you only hunted animals. He said we weren't dangerous, I repeated cynically. Not exactly, she clarified. He said you weren't supposed to be dangerous, but the Quilliats still didn't want you on their land, just in case. I stared at the road, my thoughts in a hopeless snarl, my throat aching with the familiar fire. So was he right? She asked, as calmly as if she were confirming a weather report. About not hunting people? The Quilliats have a long memory. She nodded to herself, thinking hard. Don't let that make you complacent, though, I said quickly. Their right to keep their distance from us. We are still dangerous. I don't understand. No, she didn't. How to make her see. We try, I told her. We're usually very good at what we do. Sometimes we make mistakes. Me, for example, allowing myself to be alone with you. Her scent was still a force in the car. I was growing used to it. I could almost ignore it. But there was no denying that my body still yearned toward her for the worst possible reason. My mouth was swimming with venom. I swallowed. "This is a mistake?" she asked, and there was heartbreak in her voice. The sound of it disarmed me. She wanted to be with me, despite everything. She wanted to be with me. Hope swelled again, and I beat it back. A very dangerous one, I told her truthfully, wishing the truth could really somehow cease to matter. She didn't respond for a moment. I heard her breathing change. It hitched in strange ways that did not sound like fear. "Tell me more," she said suddenly, her voice distorted by anguish. I examined her carefully. She appeared to be in some kind of pain. How had I allowed this? "What more do you want to know?" I asked, trying to think of a way to keep her from hurting. She should not hurt. I couldn't let her be hurt. "Tell me why you hunt animals instead of people," she said, still anguished. Wasn't it obvious? Or maybe this didn't matter to her either. "I don't want to be a monster," I muttered. "But animals aren't enough." I searched for another comparison, a way that she could understand. I can't be sure, of course, but I'd compare it to living on tofu and soy milk. We call ourselves vegetarians, our little inside joke. It doesn't completely satiate the hunger, or rather thirst, but it keeps us strong enough to resist, most of the time. My voice got lower. I was ashamed of the danger I had allowed her to be in, danger I continued to allow. Sometimes it's more difficult than others. "Is it very difficult for you now?" I sighed. Of course she would ask the question I didn't want to answer. "Yes," I admitted. I expected her physical response correctly this time. Her breathing held steady, her heart kept its even pattern. I expected it, but I did not understand it. How could she not be afraid? "But you're not hungry now," she declared, perfectly sure of herself. "Why do you think that?" "Your eyes," she said, her tone offhand. "I told you I had a theory. I've noticed that people, men in particular, are crabbier when they're hungry." I chuckled at her description. Crabby. There was an understatement. But she was dead right, as usual. "You are observant, aren't you?" I laughed again. She smiled a little, the crease returning between her eyes as if she were concentrating on something. "Were you hunting this weekend with Emmett?" she asked after my laugh had faded. The casual way she spoke was as fascinating as it was frustrating. Could she really accept so much in stride? I was closer to shock than she seemed to be. "Yes," I told her. Then, as I was about to leave it at that, I felt the same.
Where the hell did he
urge
come
to
from?
grasp me. I wanted her to know me. I didn't want to. I went on slowly.
Oh, Ghost Daddy.
It was necessary. It's a bit easier to be around you when I'm not thirsty. Why didn't
I don't
you want
usually
to
get jump scared from this game.
Took a deep breath and then turned to meet
Almost
her gaze.
never.
This kind of honesty was difficult in a very different way. It makes me anxious. I suppose that word would suffice.
That was
Though
crazy.
it wasn't strong enough to be away from you. I wasn't joking when I asked you to try not to fall in the ocean or get run over last Thursday. I was distracted all weekend worrying about you. And after what happened tonight, I'm surprised that you did make it through a whole weekend unscathed.
Okay.
Then I remembered the scrapes on her palms. Well, not totally unscathed, I amended. What? Your hands, I reminded her. She sighed and her lips turned down. I fell. That's what I thought. I said, unable to contain my smile. I suppose, being you, it could have been much worse, and that possibility tormented me the entire time I was away. It was a very long 3 days. I really got on Emmett's nerves. Honestly, that didn't belong in the past tense. I was probably
What's
still
she doing?
irritating Emmett, and all the rest of my family too. Except Alice. 3 days? She asked, her voice suddenly sharp. Didn't you just get back today? I didn't understand the edge in her voice. No, we got back Sunday. Then why weren't any of you in school? She demanded. Her irritation confused me. She didn't seem to realize that this question was one that related to mythology again. Well, you asked if the sun hurt me, and it doesn't, I said. But I can't go out in the sunlight, at least not where anyone can see. That distracted her from her mysterious annoyance. Why? She asked, leaning her head to one side. I doubted I could come up with the appropriate analogy to explain this one. So I just told her, I'll show you sometime. And then immediately wondered if this was a promise I would end up breaking. I'd said the words so casually, but I could not imagine actually following through. It wasn't something to worry about now. I didn't know if I could be allowed to see her again after tonight. Did I love her enough yet to be able to bear leaving her? You might have called me, she said. An odd conclusion. I knew you were safe. But I didn't know where you were. She came to an abrupt stop and looked at her hands. What? Didn't you?
Oops.
She said shyly, the skin over her cheekbones warming. Not seeing you. It makes me anxious too. Are you happy now? I demanded of myself. Well, here was my reward for hoping. I was bewildered, elated, horrified, mostly horrified, to realize that all my wildest fantasies were not so far off the mark. This was why it didn't matter to her that I was a monster. It was exactly the same reason that the rules no longer mattered to me. Why right and wrong were no longer compelling influences. Why all my priorities had shifted one rung down to make room for this girl at the very top. Bella cared for me, too. I knew it could be nothing in comparison to how I loved her. She was mortal, changeable. She wasn't locked in with no hope of recovery. But still, she cared enough to risk her life to sit here with me, to do so gladly. Enough that it would cause her pain if I did the right thing and left her. Was there anything I could do now that would not hurt her? Anything at all? Every word we spoke here, each one of them was another pomegranate seed. That strange vision in the restaurant had been more on point than I'd realized. I should have stayed away. I should never have come back to Forks. I would cause her nothing but pain. Would that stop me from staying now? From making it worse? The way I felt at this moment, feeling her warmth against my skin. No, nothing would stop me. I groaned to myself. This is wrong. What did I say? She asked, quick to take the blame on herself. Don't you see, Bella? It's one thing for me to make myself miserable, but a wholly other thing for you to be so involved. I don't want to hear that you feel that way. It was a truth. It was a lie. The most selfish part of me
All I have to do is
was
leave.
flying with the knowledge that she wanted me as I wanted her. It's wrong.
Challenge
It's not
complete.
safe. I'm dangerous, Bella. Please, grasp that. No. Her lips pouted out stubbornly. I'm serious. I was battling with myself so strongly, half desperate for her to accept my warnings, half desperate to keep the warnings from escaping, that the words came through my teeth as a growl. So am I, she insisted. I told you, it doesn't matter what you are. It's too late. Too late. The world was bleakly black and white. For one endless second, as I watched the shadows crawl across the sunny lawn towards Bella's sleeping form in my memory.
Yeah, that one took a couple
Inevitable.
tries.
Unstoppable.
Got it.
They stole the color from her skin and plunged her into darkness, into the underworld.
Now.
Too Too
Fully
late?
deplete 2 medkits.
Alice's vision swirled in my head. Bella's blood-red eyes staring back at me impassively, expressionless. But there was no way that she could not hate me for that future. Hate me for stealing everything from her. It could not be too late. Never say that, I hissed. She stared out her window, and her teeth bit into her lip again. Her hands were balled into tight fists in her lap, her breathing hitched. What are you thinking? I had to know. She shook her head without looking at me. I saw something glisten like a crystal on her cheek. Agony. Are you crying? I'd made her cry. I'd hurt her that much. She scrubbed the tear away with the back of her hand. No, she lied, her voice breaking. Some long-buried instinct had me reaching out toward her. In that 1 second, I felt more human than I'd ever had. And then I remembered that I was not.
Thank you for the like.
And I lowered my hand. I'm sorry, I said, my jaw locked. How could I ever tell her how sorry I was? Sorry for all the stupid mistakes I'd made. Sorry for my never-ending selfishness. Sorry that she was so unfortunate as to have inspired this first and last tragic love of mine. Sorry also for the things beyond my control. That I'd been the executioner chosen by fate to end her life in the first place. I took a deep breath, ignoring my wretched reaction to the flavor in the car, and tried to collect myself. I wanted to change the subject, to think of something else. Lucky for me, my curiosity about the girl was insatiable. Tell me something, I said. Yes, she asked huskily, tears still in her voice. What were you thinking tonight, just before I came around the corner? I couldn't understand your expression. You didn't look that scared. You looked like you were concentrating very hard on something. I remembered her face, forcing myself to forget whose eyes I was looking through, the look of determination there. I was trying to remember how to incapacitate an attacker, she said, her voice more composed. You know, self-defense. I was going to smash his nose into his brain. Her composure did not last to the end of her explanation. Her tone twisted until it seethed with hate. This was no hyperbole, and her fury was not humorous now. I could see her frail figure, just silk over glass, overshadowed by the meaty, heavy-fisted human monsters who would have hurt her. The fury boiled in the back of my head. You were going to fight them? I wanted to groan. Her instincts were deadly to herself. Didn't you think about running? I fall down a lot when I run, she said sheepishly. What about screaming for help? I was getting to that part. I shook my head in disbelief. You were right, I told her, a sour edge to my voice. I'm definitely fighting fate trying to keep you alive. She sighed and glanced out the window. Then she looked back at me. Will I see you tomorrow? She demanded abruptly. As long as we're on our way down to hell, why not enjoy the journey? Yes, I have a paper due too. I smiled at her, and it felt good to do this. Clearly, hers were not the only instincts that were backwards. I'll save you a seat at lunch. Her heart fluttered. My dead heart felt warmer. I stopped the car in front of her father's house. She made no move to leave me. Do you promise to be there tomorrow? She insisted.
Oh no, I almost made it.
I promise.
Well, I went out before it was really sunshiny, but we had
Surely
a good sunrise
there was
going.
something missing.
We're probably around 70.
She nodded to herself, satisfied, and
We
started
need
to
to go
remove
back out and
the
see
jar.
how it evolved.
You can keep it, I assured her quickly.
Seems like it's going
I
to be a
rather
nice day,
wanted
though.
to leave her with something of myself. A token, like the bottle cap that was in my pocket now. You don't have a jacket for tomorrow. She handed it back to me, smiling ruefully. I don't want to have to explain to Charlie, she told me. I would imagine not. I smiled at her. Oh, right. She put her hand on the door handle and then stopped, unwilling to leave, just as I was unwilling for her to go. To have her unprotected even for a few moments. Peter and Charlotte were well on their way by now, long past Seattle, no doubt. But there were always others. Bella? I asked, amazed at the pleasure there was in simply speaking her name. Yes? Will you promise me something? Yes? She agreed easily, and then her eyes tightened as if she thought of a reason to object. Don't go into the woods alone, I warned her, wondering if this request would trigger the objection in her eyes. She blinked, startled. Why? I glowered into the untrustworthy darkness. The lack of light was no problem for my eyes, but neither would it trouble another hunter. I'm not always the most dangerous thing out there, I told her. Let's leave it at that. She shivered, but recovered quickly, and was even smiling when she told me, whatever you say. Her breath touched my face, so sweet. I could stay here all night like this, but she needed her sleep. The two desires seemed equally strong as they continually warred inside me, wanting her versus wanting her to be well. I sighed at the impossibilities. I'll see you tomorrow, I said, knowing that I would see her much sooner than that. She wouldn't see me until tomorrow, though. Tomorrow, then, she agreed as she opened the door. Agony again, watching her leave. I leaned after her, wanting to hold her here. Bella? She turned and then froze, surprised to find our faces so close together. I, too, was overwhelmed by the proximity. The heat rolled off her in waves, caressing my face. I could all but feel the silk of her skin. Her heartbeat stuttered, and her lips fell open. Sleep well, I whispered, and leaned away before the urgency in my body, either the familiar thirst or the very new and strange hunger I suddenly felt, could make me do something that might hurt her. She sat there, motionless for a moment, her eyes wide and sad. Dazzled, I guessed, as was I. She recovered, though her face was still a bit bemused, and half fell out of the car, tripping over her feet and having to catch the frame of the car to right herself. I chuckled. Hopefully it was too quiet for her to hear. I watched her stumble her way up to the pool of light that surrounded the front door, safe for the moment, and I would be back soon to make sure. I could feel her eyes follow me as I drove down the dark street. Such a different sensation than I was accustomed to. Usually, I could simply watch myself through someone's following eyes were I of a mind to. This was strangely exciting. This intangible sensation of watching eyes. I knew it was just because they were her eyes. A million thoughts chased each other through my head as I drove aimlessly into the night. For a long time, I circled through the streets, going nowhere, thinking of Bella and that incredible release of having the truth known. No longer did I have to dread that she would find out what I was. She knew. It didn't matter to her. Even though this was obviously a bad thing for her, it was amazingly liberating for me. More than that, I thought of Bella and requited love. She couldn't love me the way I loved her. Such an overpowering, all-consuming, crushing love would probably break her fragile body. But she felt strongly enough to subdue the instinctive fear, strongly enough to want to be with me. And being with her was the greatest happiness I had ever known. For a while, as I was all alone and hurting no one else for a change, I allowed myself to feel that happiness without dwelling on the tragedy, just to be thrilled that she cared for me, just to exult in the triumph of winning her affection, just to imagine sitting close to her now, hearing her voice and earning her smiles. I replayed that smile in my head, seeing her full lips pull up at the corners, the hint of a dimple that touched her pointed chin, the way her eyes warmed and melted. Her fingers had felt so warm and soft on my hand tonight. I imagined how it would feel to touch the delicate skin that stretched over her cheekbones. Silky, warm, so fragile. Silk over glass, frighteningly breakable. I didn't see where my thoughts were leading until it was too late. As I dwelt on that devastating vulnerability, other images of her face intruded on my fantasies. Lost in the shadows, pale with fear, yet her jaw tight and determined, her eyes full of concentration, her slim body braced to strike at the hulking forms that gathered around her, nightmares in the gloom. Oh, I groaned as the simmering hate that I'd all but forgotten in the joy of loving her burst again into an inferno of rage. I was alone. Bella was, I trusted, safe inside her home.
He's gonna hook me?
For a moment, I was fiercely glad that Charlie
After all that, I thought he loved me.
Law enforcement, trained and armed, was her father.
I'm gonna go track him down.
To mean something. Provide some shelter for her. She was safe. It would not take me very long to destroy the mortal who would have harmed her. No, she deserved better. I could not allow her to care for a murderer. But what about the others? Bella was safe, yes. Angela and Jessica were also surely safe in their beds. Yet, a predator was loose on the streets of Port Angeles. A human monster. Did that make him the human's problem? We did not often involve ourselves with human problems, aside from Carlisle and his constant work to heal and save. For the rest of us, our weakness for human blood was a serious impediment to becoming closely entangled with them. And of course, there were our distant wardens, the de facto vampire police force, the Volturi. We Cullens lived too differently. Drawing their attention with any poorly considered superhero-esque performances would be extremely dangerous to our family. This was definitely a mortal concern, not of our world. To commit the murder I ached to commit was wrong. I knew that. But leaving him free to attack again could not be the right thing either. The blonde hostess from the restaurant, the waitress I'd never really looked at, both had irritated me in a trivial way, but that did not mean they deserved to be in danger. I turned the car north, accelerating now that I had a purpose. Whenever I had a dilemma that was beyond me, something tangible like this, I knew where to go for help. Alice was sitting on the porch waiting for me. I pulled to a stop in front of the house rather than going around to the garage. Carlisle's in his study, she told me before I could ask. Thank you, I said, tousling her hair as I passed. Thank you for returning my call, she thought sarcastically. Oh, I paused by the door, pulling out the phone and flipping it open. Sorry,
I thought Ghost Daddy loved me.
Who it was. I was busy. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry too. By the time I saw what was going to happen, you were on your way. It was close, I murmured.
Goddamn,
she repeated, ashamed of herself. It was easy to be generous, knowing that Bella was fine. Don't be. I know you can't catch everything. No one expects you to be omniscient, Alice. Thanks. I almost asked you out to dinner tonight. Did you catch that before I changed my mind? She grinned. No, I missed that one too. Wished I'd known, I would have come. What were you concentrating on that you missed so much? Jasper's thinking about our anniversary, she laughed. He's trying not to make a decision on my gift, but I think I have a pretty good idea. You're shameless. Yep. She pursed her lips and stared up at me, a hint of accusation in her expression. I paid better attention afterward. Are you going to tell them that she knows? I sighed. Yes, later. I won't say anything. Do me a favor and tell Rosalie when I'm not around, okay? I flinched. Sure. Bella took it pretty well. Too well. Alice grinned at me. Don't underestimate Bella. I tried to block the image I didn't want to see. Bella and Alice, best of friends. Impatient now, I sighed heavily. I wanted to be through with the next part of the evening. I wanted it over with. But I was a little worried to leave Forks. Alice, I began. She saw what I was planning to ask. She'll be fine tonight. I'm keeping a better watch now. She sort of needs 24-hour supervision, doesn't she? At least. Anyway, you'll be with her soon enough. I took a deep breath. The words were beautiful to me. Go on, get this done so you can be where you want to be, she told me. I nodded and hurried up to Carlisle's room. He was waiting for me, his eyes on the door rather than the thick book on his desk. "I heard Alice tell you where to find me," he said, and smiled. It was a relief to be with him, to see the empathy and deep intelligence in his eyes. Carlisle would know what to do. "I need help. Anything, Edward," he promised. "Did Alice tell you what happened to Bella tonight?" "Almost happened," he amended. "Yes, almost. I have a dilemma, Carlisle. You see, I want very much to kill him." The words started to flow fast and passionate. "So much. But I know that would be wrong, because it would be vengeance, not justice. All anger, no impartiality. Still, it can't be right to leave a serial rapist and murderer wandering Port Angeles. I don't know the humans there, but I can't let someone else take Bella's place as his victim. Those other women, it's not right."
All right.
His wide, unexpected smile stopped the rush of my words cold. "She's very good for you, isn't she? So much compassion, so much control. I'm impressed. I'm not looking for compliments, Carlisle. Of course not. But I can't help my thoughts, can I?" He smiled again. "I'll take care of it. You can rest easy. No one else will be harmed in Bella's place." I saw the plan in his head. It wasn't exactly what I wanted. It did not satisfy my craving for brutality. But I could see that it was the right thing. "I'll show you where to find him," I said.
What?
"Let's go." He grabbed his black bag on the way.
What are you talking about?
Alice grinned at me. Bella was fine. Don't be. I know you can't catch everything. No one expects you to be omniscient, Alice. Thanks. I often involve ourselves with human problems, aside from Carlisle and his constant work to heal and save.
I don't know what those are
For the
called.
rest of us,
Heart puffs.
our weakness for human blood was a serious...
I really just zoned out and didn't even pay attention to what was going on in the book. And now I don't know.
She
where I
couldn't
left
love me the way I loved her. Such an overpowered at the impossibilities. "I'll see you tomorrow," I said, knowing that I would see her much
I
sooner
remember this
than
part.
that. She wouldn't see me until tomorrow, though. "Tomorrow, then," she agreed as she opened the door. Agony again, watching her leave. I leaned after her, wanting to hold her here. "Bella?" She turned and then froze, surprised to find our faces so close together. I, too, was overwhelmed by the proximity. The heat rolled off her in waves, caressing my face. I could all but feel the silk of her skin. Her heartbeat stuttered, and her lips fell open. "Sleep well," I whispered, and leaned away before the urgency in my body, either the familiar thirst or the very new and strange hunger I suddenly felt, could make me do something that might hurt her. She sat there, motionless for a moment, her eyes wide and stunned. Dazzled, I guessed. As was I. She recovered, though her face was still a bit bemused, and half fell out of the car, tripping over her feet and having to catch the frame of the car to right herself. I chuckled. Hopefully it was too quiet for her to hear. I watched her stumble her way up to the pool of light that surrounded the front door. Safe for the moment, and I would be back soon to make sure. I could feel her eyes follow me as I drove down the dark street. Such a different sensation than I was accustomed to. Usually, I could simply watch myself through someone's following eyes were I of a mind to. This was strangely exciting. This intangible sensation of watching eyes. I knew it was just because they were her eyes. A million thoughts chased each other through my head as I drove aimlessly into the night. For a long time, I circled through the streets, going nowhere, thinking of Bella and that incredible release of having the truth known. No longer did I have to dread that she would find out what I was. She knew. It didn't matter to her. Even though this was obviously a bad thing for her, it was amazingly liberating for me. More than that, I thought of Bella and requited love. She couldn't love me the way I loved her. Such an overpowering, all-consuming, crushing love would probably break her fragile body. But she felt strongly enough to subdue the instinctive fear, strongly enough to want to be with me. And being with her was the greatest happiness I had ever known. For a while, as I was all alone and hurting no one else for a change, I allowed myself to feel that happiness without dwelling on the tragedy, just to be thrilled that she cared for me, just to exult in the triumph of winning her affection, just to imagine sitting close to her tomorrow, hearing her voice and earning her smiles. I replayed that smile in my head, seeing her full lips pull up at the corners, the hint of a dimple that touched her pointed chin, the way her eyes warmed and melted. Her fingers had felt so warm and soft on my hand tonight.
How's it going?
I imagined how it would feel to touch the delicate skin that stretched over her cheekbones. Silky,
Got my steroids. All set.
silk over glass, frighteningly breakable. I didn't see where my thoughts were leading
no.
until it was too late.
I swear to God, kid
As I
germs
dwelt
are
on
so
that
much more
devastating
virile.
vulnerability, other images of her face intruded on my fantasies. Lost in the shadows, pale with fear, yet her jaw tight and determined, her eyes full of concentration, her slim body braced to strike at the hulking forms that gathered around her, nightmares in the gloom. Oh, I groaned as the simmering hate that I'd all but forgotten in the joy of loving her burst again into an inferno of rage. I was alone. Bella was, I trusted, safe inside her home. For a moment, I was fiercely glad that Charlie Swan, head of the local law enforcement, trained and armed, was her father. That ought to mean something. Provide some shelter for her. She was safe. It would not take me very long to destroy the mortal who would have harmed her. No, she deserved better. I could not allow her to care for a murderer. But what about the others? Bella was safe, yes. Angela and Jessica were also surely safe in their beds. Yet, a predator was loose on the streets of Port Angeles. A human monster. Did that make him the human's problem? We did not often involve ourselves with human problems, aside from Carlisle and his constant work to heal and save. For the rest of us, our weakness for human blood was a serious impediment to becoming closely entangled with them. And of course, there were our distant wardens, the de facto vampire police force, the Volturi. We Cullens lived too differently. Drawing their attention with any poorly considered superhero-esque performances would be extremely dangerous to our family. This was definitely a mortal concern, not of our world. To commit the murder I ached to commit was wrong. I knew that. But leaving him free to attack again could not be the right thing either. The blonde hostess from the restaurant, the waitress I'd never really looked at, both had irritated me in a trivial way. But that did not mean they deserved to be in
How old
danger.
is he?
I turned the car north,
Thank you for the
accelerating
puff
now that I
hearts.
had a purpose. Whenever I had a dilemma that was
Appreciate it,
beyond
Dahlia.
something tangible like this,
And like,
I knew where to go for help.
okay,
Alice was sitting
I
on
would
the porch
probably
waiting
get it.
for
You
me.
know what I mean?
I pulled
It
to a
would have to
stop
be a
in
cute
front of the
tattoo
house
though.
rather
Like,
than going around
it can't
the
just be one of
garage.
those lame mom heart
Carlisle's in his
tattoos. It's
study,
gotta be an
she told
awesome
me before I
tattoo.
could ask. Thank you, I said,
have to have
tousling her hair
standards.
as I passed. Thank you for returning my call, she thought sarcastically. Oh, I paused by the door, pulling out my phone and flipping it open. Sorry, I didn't even check to see who it was. I was busy.
Fuck.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry too. By the time I saw what was going to happen, you were on your way. It was close. Sorry, she repeated.
Not knocking your
shaking
mom
herself.
tattoo.
It was
It's
easy
just
to be
like,
generous, knowing
so-
that Bella was fine. Don't be. I know you can't catch everything, and no one
I
expects
want
you
I
to be
want to say
omniscient.
both iconic and cliche.
Thanks. I almost asked you out to dinner tonight. Did you catch that before I changed
I
my
feel
mind?
like if it was stylized,
grinned.
I wouldn't mind it.
No, I missed that one too. Wish I'd known, I would have come. What were you
But it would have to
concentrating
be,
on
like,
that you
unique.
missed so much? Jasper's thinking about our
I
anniversary.
kind of like
She
everything
laughed.
tribal, though.
He's
and
trying not to
tribal
make
is
a
pretty
decision
cliche,
on my gift,
also.
but I think I have a pretty good idea. You're shameless.
So please don't be
Yep.
offended.
She pursed her lips and stared up at me.
Oh my god.
A hint of accusation in her expression. I
I
paid
feel like
better
a dino
attention
tattoo would
after.
be fun, though.
Are you going to tell them that she
I would
knows?
probably get like a really obscure
sighed.
dinosaur.
Yes. Later.
I don't know which
I
one
won't say
exactly. Maybe
Do
like
me a favor and tell
maybe
Rosalie
Ducky
when I'm not
from
around, okay?
Land Before Time. That
I flinched.
dinosaur.
Sure. Bella took it pretty well. Too well. Alice grinned at me.
A tea bag with a
underestimate
T-Rex in it.
I tried
That's
to block
funny.
the image I didn't want to see. Bella and
You
Alice.
dad joke
best
tattooed.
friends. Impatient now, I sighed heavily. I wanted to be through with the next part of the evening. I wanted it over with.
Okay, Dahlia, you said you have one with your mom, not that it was like a heart mom tattoo.
She saw what I was planning to
I read
ask.
that really fast.
She'll
I
be
think I
fine
read it
tonight.
wrong.
I'm keeping a better watch now. She sort of
The
needs
hiccups.
24-hour supervision, doesn't she? At least. Anyway, you'll be with her soon enough. I took a deep breath. The words were beautiful to me. Go on,
was like a
get this
singular
done so you can
hiccup.
be where you want to be, she told me. I nodded and hurried up to Carlisle's room. He was waiting for me, his eyes on the door rather than the thick book on his desk. I heard Alice tell you where to find me, he said, and smiled. It was a relief to be with
I don't
him,
think I have any
to see
tattoos that
the
are with
empathy and
anybody.
deep intelligence in his eyes. Carlisle would know what to
I
do.
thought about getting one with my little
I need
sister
help.
back in the day, but we never ended up doing it.
He promised. Did Alice tell you what happened to Bella tonight? Almost have. He amended. Yes, almost. I have a dilemma, Carlisle. You see, I want very much to kill him. The words started to flow fast and passionate, so much. But I know that
I
would
missed
be
it
wrong,
again. Who are
because
they
it would be
killing?
vengeance, not just... You're shameless. Yep. She pursed her lips and stared up at me, a hint of accusation in her expression. I paid better attention afterward. Are you going to tell them that she knows? I sighed. Yes, later. I won't say anything. Do me a favor and tell Rosalie when I'm not around, okay? I flinched. Sure. Bella took it pretty well. Too well. Alice grinned at me. Don't underestimate Bella. I tried to block the image I didn't want to see. Bella and
Aw,
Alice,
that's awesome.
best of friends. Impatient now, I sighed heavily. I wanted to be through with the next part of the evening. I wanted it over with. But I was a little worried to leave Forks. Alice, I began. She saw what I was planning to ask. She'll be fine tonight. I'm keeping a better watch now. She sort of needs 24-hour supervision, doesn't she? At least. Anyway, you'll be with her soon enough. I took a deep breath. The words were beautiful to me. Go on, get this done so you can be where you want to be, she told me. I nodded and hurried up to Carlisle's room. He was waiting for me, his eyes on the door rather than the thick book on his desk. I heard Alice tell you where to find me, he said, and smiled. It was a relief to be with him, to see the empathy and deep intelligence in his eyes. Carlisle didn't know what to do. I need help. Anything, Edward, he promised. Did Alice tell you what happened to Bella tonight? Almost happened, he amended. Yes, almost. I have a dilemma, Carlisle. You see, I want very much to kill him. The words started to flow fast and passionate, so much. But I know that would be wrong, because it would be vengeance, not justice. All anger, no impartiality. Still, it can't be right to leave a serial rapist and murderer wandering Port Angeles. I don't know the humans there, but I can't let someone else take Bella's place as his victim. Those other women, it's not right. His wide, unexpected smile stopped the rush of my words cold. She's very good for you, isn't she? So much compassion, so much control. I'm impressed. I'm not looking for compliments, Carlisle. Of course not. But I can't help my thoughts, can I? He smiled again. I'll take care of it. You can rest easy. No one else will be harmed in Bella's place. I saw the plan in his head. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, It did not satisfy my craving for brutality, but I could see that it was the right thing. "I'll show you where to find him," I said. "Let's go." He grabbed his black bag on the way. I would have preferred a more aggressive form of sedation, like a cracked skull, but
Yeah,
I
all
would let
mine are pretty
Carlisle do
tribal.
this his way.
It's my whole vibe.
We took my car.
Even
Alice
my
was
cards
still on
are
the steps.
tribal.
She grinned and waved as we drove away. I saw that she had looked ahead for me. We would have no difficulties. The trip was very short on the dark, empty road. I left off my headlights to keep from attracting attention. It made me smile to think how Bella would have reacted to this pace. I'd already been driving slower than usual to prolong my time with her when she'd objected. Carlisle was thinking of Bella too. I didn't foresee that she would be so good for him. That's unexpected. Perhaps this was somehow meant to be. Perhaps it serves a higher purpose. Only... He pictured Bella with snow-cold skin and blood-red eyes.
It's great that you
and then
draw them
flinched
up.
away
That's
from the
amazing.
image. Yes, indeed. Only. Because how could there be any good in destroying something so pure and lovely? I glowered into the night, all the joy of the evening destroyed. Edward deserves happiness. He's owed it. The fierceness of Carlisle's thoughts surprised me. There must be a way. I wished I could believe either of his hopes, but there was no higher purpose to what was happening to Bella. Just a vicious harpy, an ugly, bitter fate who could not bear for her to have the life she deserved. I did not linger in Port Angeles. I took Carlisle to the dive bar where the twisted thing named Lanny was drowning in disappointment with his friends, 2 of whom had already passed out. Carlisle could see how hard it was for me to be so close, to hear the fiend's thoughts and see his memories, memories of Bella mixed in with those of less fortunate girls whom no one could save now. My breathing sped. My hands clenched the steering wheel. "Go, Edward," he told me gently. "I'll make the rest of them safe. You go back to Bella." It was exactly the right thing to say. Her name was the only distraction that meant anything to me. I left Carlisle in the car and ran back to Forks in a straight line through the sleeping forest. It took less time than the first journey in the speeding car. It was just minutes later that I scaled the side of her house and slid her window out of my way. I sighed silently with relief. Everything was just as it should be. Bella was safe in her bed, dreaming, her wet hair tangled across the pillow. But unlike most nights, she was curled into a small ball with the cover stretched taut around her shoulders. Cold, I guessed. Before I could settle into my usual seat, she shivered in her sleep and her lips trembled. I thought for a brief moment, and then eased out into the hallway, exploring another part of her house for the first time. Charlie's snores were loud and even. I could almost catch the edge of his dream. Something with the rush of water and patient expectation. Fishy, maybe? There at the top of the stairs was a promising-looking cupboard.
Nope, she's done.
I opened it hopefully and found what I was looking for. I selected the thickest blanket from the tiny linen closet and took it back into her room. I would return it before she woke, and no one would be the wiser. Holding my breath, I cautiously spread the blanket over her. She didn't react to the added weight. I returned to the rocking chair. While I waited anxiously for her to warm up, I thought of Carlisle, wondering where he was now. I knew his plan would go smoothly. Alice had seen that. Thinking of my father made me sigh. Carlisle gave me too much credit. I wished I were the person he thought me to be. That person, the one who deserved happiness, might hope to be worthy of this sleeping girl. How different things would be if I could be that Edward. Or if I could not be what I should. At least there should be some balance in the universe to cancel out my darkness. Should there not be an equal and opposite good? I'd envisioned the hag-faced fate of some explanation for the terrifying and improbable moment that kept coming for Bella. First myself, then the van, and then the noxious beast tonight. But if that fate had so much power, Shouldn't there be a force in place to thwart it? Someone like Bella ought to have a protector, a guardian angel. She deserved that. And yet, clearly she'd been left defenseless. I would love to believe an angel or anything else was watching over her, anything that would give her a measure of protection. But when I tried to imagine that champion, it was obvious such a thing was impossible. What guardian angel would have allowed Bella to come here, to cross my path, formed as she was in such a fashion that there was no way I could possibly overlook her? A ridiculously potent scent to demand my attention, a silent mind to inflame my curiosity, a quiet beauty to hold my eyes, a selfless soul to earn my awe. Factor in the total lack of self-preservation, so she was not repelled by me. And then, of course, add the wide streak of appallingly bad luck that put her always in the wrong place at the wrong time. There could be no stronger evidence that guardian angels were a fantasy. No one needed or deserved one more than Bella. Yet any angel that could have allowed us to meet must be so irresponsible, so reckless, so harebrained, that it could not possibly be on the side of good. I'd rather the loathsome harpy were real than any celestial being so ineffectual. At least I could fight against the ugly fate. And I would fight. I would keep fighting. Whatever force it was that wanted to hurt Bella would have to go through me. She had no guardian angel, but I would do my best to make up for the lack. A guardian vampire. There was a stretch. After about a half hour, Bella relaxed out of the tight ball. Her breathing got deeper and she started to murmur. I smiled, satisfied. It was a small thing, but at least she was sleeping more comfortably tonight because I was here. Edward, she sighed, and she smiled too. I shoved tragedy aside for the moment and let myself be happy again. Chapter 11, Interrogations.
Jesus Christ.
CNN broke the story first. I was glad it hit the news before I had to leave for school. I was anxious to hear how the humans would phrase the account, and what amount of attention it would garner. Luckily, it was a heavy news day. There was an earthquake in South America and a political kidnapping in the Middle East, so it ended up only earning a few seconds, a few sentences, and one grainy picture. Orlando Calderas Wallace, suspected murderer, wanted in the states of Texas and Oklahoma, was apprehended last night in Portland, Oregon, thanks to an anonymous tip. Wallace was found unconscious in an alley early this morning, just a few yards from a police station. Officials are unable to tell us at this time whether he will be extradited to Houston.